What's up, peeps? LTMB Live, let the madness begin. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us tonight. We know we missed Tuesday. Wasn't our intention to. We communicated why on Twitter, YouTube. Had a little problem with YouTube, but we are back tonight.
LTMB COVID free.
Yeah, ain't caught that Rona yet.
Yeah, ain't caught that Rona. Nope.
It is on the fly, though. It is spreading at a very fast rate. We're going to get into all of that, no doubt. Pressing the wrong buttons here. I forgot what buttons do what. Anyway, broadcasting live on YouTube and Twitch. Twitter, I'm not sure. Twitter, I am not sure. It seems like we haven't been broadcasting on Twitter for a while, unless
because
I'm mistaken.
You notice that the live broadcast haven't been uploading since when? 26th of February?
It's been like 2 months? No, it's been like
January or February 26th.
Did it say 26 weeks? Or no.
It was the 26th of
the 26th of February. Okay, I got you. I
so about
26 in there. Okay. We're not broadcasting on.
But the software is set up to stream.
Yeah. So we just got to take a look at that because we're using Restream to do it, and for some reason it's not going through.
Yeah, because usually when the show starts, I'm checking YouTube to make sure everything is on the up and up. And that's really where I go. That's the first place I go. So I don't really go to Twitter to see if everything is live. I go to YouTube. So I haven't checked. I don't check YouTube. I don't check Twitter.
We'll clean that up maybe on the next or before the next broadcast. We'll see what's going on with Twitter. But anyway, we get most of our viewers on YouTube anyway. So thank you for joining us tonight. Again, have a lot to discuss tonight. I think it's probably the right thing to do to talk about the coronavirus outbreak first, because that is much of what is being discussed by most people, and for good reason. So it continues to spread. We know that. It's been interesting following the updates, because on Tuesday, when we were planning to do the show, I was looking at the total amount of confirmed cases. And on Tuesday, this is the 19th. Today's the 19th, right? Yes. So on Monday, it was about 182,000 total cases globally, with about just over 7,000 deaths, worldwide. Then, a couple days later, on the 17th, that would have been Wednesday. 17th was Tuesday. Tuesday. I'm sorry. So on the 17th, it jumped up about 14,000 in confirmed cases to 195,000 total cases. The deaths jumped up about 700 to just under 8,000 deaths. And then so earlier today, I checked it. And now globally, we are at almost 230,000 confirmed cases, up to 9,300 total deaths globally. So it is spreading at a very, very, very fast rate. In terms of the United States, on Tuesday, we had over 5,100 cases confirmed, and we had reached 100 deaths. 2 days later now, it's more than double that. Mm-hmm. So we're over 11,000 cases. It's over that, and it's over double in terms of cases. In terms of deaths, we're at 163 deaths, at least 163 deaths.
The cases, logically, they're going to go up because people are, getting tested now.
Yeah,
well,
more so
not as widely as they should be, but
no.
The more tests that people take, and the more tests that become available to people, the number of cases are going to go up.
Right.
Or the number of cases are going to be revealed.
Yes.
Like the cases are the cases. They exist regardless of whether we know about them or not. The
right.
test just confirms it for us.
I saw somebody, I believe it was a doctor on CNN speaking recently about, and I don't know if this went for the United States or globally or certain other country, but what this doctor was saying was that 4 out of 5 people that have contracted the illness got it from somebody that did not know that they had it. So that goes along with this reality. Well, the reality that not enough people have been tested. A lot of people, I don't know, for whatever reason, maybe they're not experiencing the symptoms, or they felt like they didn't have the money to go through the testing at that point. Whatever the reason, they didn't have it, and they were able to spread this virus without knowing it.
Well, I think that's a part of it. But as far as people visiting some sort of healthcare facility to get tested, there was priorities that these, these healthcare facilities had in regard to testing people. Because if they said you weren't showing symptoms or you didn't knowingly come in contact with somebody who tested positive, they weren't going to test you because of the limited availability of the test. Or the testing capacity is limited, so they're going to pick and choose who they test. To me, it's flawed because obviously no one knows the people you've come in contact with and whether they tested positive.
This is not something
or whether they're actually positive, regardless of whether they got the test or not.
But this is not an illness where as soon as you contract it, you're showing symptoms.
Yeah.
So you can easily pass it without maybe ever even having any symptoms.
It's more or less like they only test you if you come in contact with somebody who they know is positive.
Right.
So it's all kind of circumspect.
Yeah.
It's all circumspect to me. I mean, based on how many tests they can do, I understand why they had to prioritize it that way.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they understand that it's flawed. They're gonna, miss a lot of people that actually do have it. But
now, see, I remember this was, I don't believe this was last week. It might have been the week before. But I took my daughter to the not the hospital, but to the doctor because she was feeling sick, and so she had symptoms of something, right? And so they tested her for the flu. She didn't have the flu. She just was sick. There was no talk of, her possibly having the virus or anything like that. In the waiting room, it was just very lax in there. And we know that before, especially here in South Carolina, it was not really that much of an issue. There might have been at the time maybe one confirmed case.
Now there's like 60.
Yeah. So it's just it. This goes in the line of, the rhetoric that we've heard from the White House and this administration, treating this like this is a nothing thing that's just going to go away very soon. And like I said, they weren't treating it with the responsibility that you would think that they would.
But what country was that developed some sort of, a scan, X-ray or a scan to look for something in the lungs? Because that's some buildup or something that's in the lungs that's associated with the virus?
Not sure.
Is that South Korea? I don't know.
But anyway, Going further, in the U.S., officials are indicating that this pandemic may last more than, or maybe about 18 months. We've talked about before that the possible vaccine may not be available for 12 to 18 months. So U.S. officials are also stating that there could be several waves of this virus. So it may look like it has disappeared for a minute, but then it may reemerge. And that, again, may be because of a lack of a vaccine. You may feel like you have contained it, but again, it can spread easily.
And a lack of social distancing, too.
Right.
If you look at other countries that have had issues with this virus as well, as soon as there was social distancing instituted, I guess mandatory, they saw the numbers like go way down or just stop. Like Italy, China, South Korea, all those countries, you can see their numbers leveling off.
Well, not Italy.
Well,
Italy. The other countries may be, but not Italy.
Well, see, that's why they were being so strict in Italy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're still on that. It looks like they're still doing this. In China, I believe they posted their first day of no new cases so far.
See, I'm not so sure.
This is going back until I believe late last year. This is their first day of not having any new cases. I don't know what that means. Like
I don't know if I trust their numbers based on how secretive China is. They have 24 times more people than Italy, but Italy has
more cases.
More cases?
Well, no, no.
Not more
so
cases.
they don't have more cases, but now Italy has now surpassed China in terms of deaths. China is at, I believe, just over 3,200 deaths, but Italy today they reported 427 deaths in the last 24 hours, and so they're now at 3,405 deaths, which is leading the world now. Now, like you were talking about, the differences between China and Italy, though. In China and in other places, well, no, not China, but in other places like South Korea, testing has been very widespread. Like they immediately treated this with the responsibility and the seriousness that it deserved, and you can see it in their numbers. Italy did not, in terms of just how many tests, I guess like concerning what the population is. South Korea was testing way more people at a higher rate. Italy, their testing was very low. And so again, you can see that because of that, the outbreak spread at a more rapid pace than other places like South Korea. So I think we're experiencing some of that in the United States of America as well, because we know what the administration's first response was. This was not very serious. We can contain this. We've made several moves. We acted fast, this and that. We deserve a 10 out of 10. Trump actually said that he deserved a 10 out of 10 for the response. This is just one of the responses. Now, this was a few days ago. Now, we're going to show you a difference because Trump has changed his rhetoric just a little bit. But this was several days ago, and there was a press conference, and he was with a number of people that were behind him. One who was Dr. Fauci, Dr. Stephen Fauci, who is the director of the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. So in the same press conference that Dr. Fauci was saying that the worst is ahead for us, Donald Trump said this.
You don't have to buy so much. Take it easy. Just relax. Doug of Walmart said that they're buying more than they buy at Christmas. Relax. We're doing great. It all will pass.
So it'll all pass. We're doing great. Relax. He was really trying to sell the message that, people are running out to the stores and just gathering all of these things when there's no shortage of all these supplies, food, toilet paper, there's no shortage. So just kind of relax. But again, the way that the president of the United States was approaching this was very cavalier in nature. Now, the very next day, you can tell his rhetoric changed just a little bit. This is a clip.
As we combat the virus, each and every one of us has a critical role to play in stopping the spread and transmission of the virus. We did this today. This was done by a lot of very talented people, some of whom are standing with me, and that's available. And Dr. Birx will be speaking about that in just a few minutes. It's important for the young and healthy people to understand that while they may experience milder symptoms, they can easily spread this virus, and they will spread it indeed, putting countless others in harm's way. We especially worry about our senior citizens. The White House Task Force meets every day and continually updates guidelines based on the fast-evolving situation that this has become all over the world. It's all over the world. It's incredible what's happened in such a short period of time. On the guidelines of the task force, the new modeling conducted by Dr. Birx, and our consultation with governors, we've made the decision to further toughen the guidelines and blunt the infection now. We'd much rather be ahead of the curve than behind it, and that's what we are. Therefore, my administration is recommending that all Americans, including the young and healthy, work to engage in schooling from home when possible, avoid gathering in groups of more than 10 people, avoid discretionary travel, and avoid eating and drinking at bars, restaurants, and public food courts. If everyone makes this change or these critical changes and sacrifices now, we will rally together as one nation, and we will defeat the virus, and we're going to have a big celebration all together.
Have a big celebration.
Yeah, because honestly, he sounds better than Joe Biden. Regardless of the switch, regardless of the pivot, he sounds better than Joe Biden. What Joe Biden was saying, Joe Biden was like, go out and vote. We've gone through pandemics before. We've gone through this pandemic. We've gone through that. Go out and vote. I'm like, dude. He named some situation. I forgot what pandemic he referenced the other day in regards to encouraging people to go vote. I was like almost 700,000 people died. I was like, that's a bad one to mention, dude.
Bad example.
That's a bad example. But yeah, it's. But what does that say about Trump, though? Is like, what does that say about Trump and his advisors and the White House? Trump hardly ever pivots. Yeah. Trump usually pokes his chest out and just like sticks to his guns every single time. He's very stubborn.
He smells an opportunity.
He smells an opportunity. See, that's the thing. He smells an opportunity. So, I mean, on January 22nd, reporter asked him, are there worries about the virus? Mm-hmm. And he said, no, not at all. He said, not at all. That was January 22nd.
Right.
On February 26th, he says, we're going down, not up. We're going substantially down. That was a month ago. That was a month ago. And on March 7th, he said, no concern at all. So
I know.
So he sees something. He sees something. That's the only reason why he would pivot, because he sees a benefit. I'm not even going to get into the conversation about, well, he cares about the American people. I'm not getting to that conversation. He sees something here. He sees an opportunity.
He can exploit it.
He can exploit this. He sees an opportunity to turn some dookie into gold. This is a good opportunity to turn some dookie into gold here, because like he is facing circumstances that he can get out of and make himself look really good come November. You know,
obviously this was, you know what? Obviously this was going to happen, but I can't say what I expected or not. I can't say that. I'm not surprised by him pivoting to this point, but I don't think a lot of people would have expected it to happen before somebody like Biden sounds better on it than Trump would.
Yeah, and especially after how his administration and his pandemic response team handled it, especially after, how he treated the NPR? Yeah. The NPR journalist. Mm-hmm. The question, called her nasty for asking a valid question. Yeah. So even with all that, even with his response team and his administration, like stiff-arming the WHO test, the one that was proven to work, and going with another test that ended up not working. So that's why we're behind on the test. Again, even with all that, I hate to say it for the Democrats, Trump could actually come out on the end of this looking good, regardless of all that, regardless of whether people in his circle or his administration or even him call it the Chinese virus or the Kung flu. All that won't matter.
What matters is going to be how he looks at the end. See, we see the pivot. Yeah. We see that he treated it very responsibly, and someone that it looked like somebody that did not deserve to be in a leadership position.
You said responsibly.
Did I say responsibly?
Yeah.
He treated it irresponsibly.
Okay.
And he did treat it like, as such, like somebody that's in a leadership position. This is indicative of somebody that does not deserve to hold an office like that or a position like that. So we get that. All right. We talked about how irresponsible he was. Virtually no one is going to remember his earlier response or his initial response. If he keeps this narrative, if he keeps this position that he has, in which he looks like he is actually caring of the American people, and he's going to take steps to actually protect them,
like an economic relief plan.
Yeah, relief plan. Like widespread testing. We're talking about payments to the American citizens. We're talking about helping small businesses. Even yesterday, he talked about not foregoing, but canceling the foreclosures. Canceling foreclosures of homes. So these are things that, of course, many people want to see, but you wouldn't expect somebody like Donald Trump, a conservative, to be advocating for, but he is. So it's just very interesting. And look, like I said, if he keeps this line of thought, if he keeps this position heading into the election, people are going to remember that. It's not going to be about how you treated it first, even though it should be. I think we should do that because we know this is just a con. Yeah. Anybody that's intelligent, anybody that has seen this man in action for 3-4 years, it's a con.
We know politics is just about optics.
We know that. But,
and so
he's exploiting it.
Yeah, he's exploiting it. It's a matter of which party can exploit the other's party. Well, they're both beholden to corporations and corporate interests. Yeah. Corporate interests and capital. So we know that. Both parties are guilty of that. So what happens is both parties leave the door open for the other party to come through and be like, you know what? We can take a situation and we can come off looking like the heroes. Yeah. We can come off looking like actual populists here.
This is just a campaign strategy.
Yeah, we can come off looking good. So they both do it. They both leave the door open for the other party to come in. Mm-hmm. It's just that they have an agreement between each other that we're just going to involve ourselves in political theater and play this game and blah, blah, blah. You know the rest. But the door is open right now for Republicans to look like the heroes. And quite frankly, the Democrats are just floundering right now. And when you see Kamala Harris floating her idea, I forgot what it was called. What was the plan called? Because it was actually floated during her campaign.
Is it the Life Act or is it
what's the name of that
act?
Lift. That's right.
Act, yeah.
That's what she was promoting as a response to this, as some sort of economic relief plan. Like, you floated that during your presidential campaign. Mm-hmm. So to float that during a time like this, like really? And then Mitt Romney putting out something that's better than what you're putting out or suggesting. That's a bad look.
Mitt Romney.
Again.
Can't be confused as a liberal progressive. Can't be confused as one of those.
This junk is like baffling me. Like these Democrats right now, they are putting themselves in a position to lose the election and come out on the wrong end of this.
They were already on that road because they all lined up behind Joe Biden. So they were already on that road. But look, let's deal with the reality of this, okay? Because lots of small businesses and larger businesses are shutting down. Shutting down until it's indefinite. We've talked about sports teams, just not just teams, but the entire. The entire leagues have been shut down. Certain cities and states, there's curfews that have been implemented. There's a curfew here. I think it's just in Colombia. I don't think it's statewide. But yeah, this is the reality of this pandemic. So in response to this, and because of lost wages, lost revenue, all of this, so Congress is trying to take some steps. So there's a number of these measures that have been proposed and passed already. On March 5th, that was definitely several days ago, the Senate passed an $8.3 billion emergency spending package to fight the outbreak of this virus. All right. Now, then almost 2 weeks later, that was just a couple days ago, the Senate passed a second emergency bill that provides free testing, food assistance, unemployment benefits, and paid leave for some workers at companies that do not have over 500 employees. So it's good, but it doesn't cover everybody. So now the Congress and the White House, the administration, are discussing a third measure. And this measure is to address, all workers, everybody that, is realizing a loss of wages and still having to pay their bills. So like Mike was saying, Mitt Romney talking about $1,000 for Americans. There have been other proposals. I believe Maxine Waters is saying, I think, $2,000 for every adult and then $1,000 for every child.
It's pretty much a copy and paste from what the things Bernie suggested.
Right. So there's different proposals. There are some people like Senator Lindsey Graham that don't want individual payments directly to American citizens. He wants to work through unemployment benefits, and he wants to protect small businesses. Okay. It just seems like a cop-out. When you hear him talk, he tries to explain it with using a lot of different words. It just seems like a cop-out. It seems like he just doesn't want to protect everybody, because to say you don't want the direct payments to go to American citizens, you want it to go through the businesses. That doesn't ring well for me. It doesn't ring true to me.
It's a trickle-down mentality.
Yeah, it just doesn't ring true to me. I just don't feel that it's going to go exactly the way it's supposed to go. But anyway, what else? Also, yes, in this third measure as well, I believe it will contain some money for, we said small business, but for big business as well. The healthcare industry is requesting $100 billion. $100 billion from Congress.
The healthcare industry.
Yes, because they need this money to address the many hospitals that are running low on medical supplies for patients and healthcare workers. So that have been responding to this pandemic. $100 billion. Now, do they need it? They very well could. They very well could need that money. I know that I've seen some reports about the airline industry not being able to run. They will go out of business. They will go bankrupt if Congress does not save them. They need billions of dollars, all of this, right? So I'm just sitting here thinking, okay, look, I know that we're living in a global outbreak. It's a pandemic, and the United States, they have to deal with it just like every other country. But being in this country and constantly hearing that we don't have the money for this, we don't have the money for that, healthcare for all, no, we can't do that. How are you going to pay for it? College for all, how are you going to pay for it? Bailing out the student debt, or the students with student debt, how are you going to pay for that? How are you going to pay for all these plans?
Or shaming people for not being able to afford things by saying, maybe you should, not buy that latte at Starbucks every day, and then you'll be able to afford X, Y, Z. Or maybe you should, not splurge on that number 5, value meal at McDonald's, and maybe you'll be able to afford this or that.
So for me, I feel it's a fortunate thing that we have money to address this emergency? It seems like we do. It seems like we have the money to address this emergency. And if we can actually, funnel payments to American citizens who are out of work and are dealing with this situation.
But what's the situation surround this emergency? What's the overarching subject matter this surrounds? What does it pertain to? Health care.
Yeah, it does.
And so we have this money.
Yeah. We have all this money.
Apparently
it was just sitting around.
We have all this money to temporarily, but only temporarily give people human rights.
Yes.
Just for this one time.
Just temporarily.
You can have, some human rights as a treat.
Yeah.
Just as a treat, though.
You know what I don't hear the corporate media talking about?
What is that, sir?
How are we going to pay for it?
Hell to the no.
I don't hear people talking about that at all. It's, because if we're talking about cost, if we're talking about providing benefits to people, and it doesn't matter if it's temporary or not. I mean, it really does not matter. I mean, these costs are massive. So it doesn't matter if it's temporary or not. Whenever a progressive is interviewed, it's always about how are you going to pay for that? So why is that question not being asked now? Why is that not the question? How are we going to pay for it? It seems like this money is like ponies and rainbows and cupcakes, and it's like this money is just emerging. It's miraculous. It just appeared. It just appeared out of nowhere. But we can't make that happen when talking about healthcare for all permanently, college for all permanently, erasing student debt, raising the minimum wage. Can't talk about it.
Because this is like, I guess, what you would call a huge push for a social safety net in the moment.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. A massive social safety net.
But not just for people, though. Not just for regular folk. But for corporations that already get massive breaks. That's the funny part.
That's the funny part.
That's the funny part.
Already getting these billions of dollars in subsidies.
Not only that, what happened last year, Will? A year after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. What did
you talking about the record number of stock buybacks?
Years.
The record number.
You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
So they pump money, billions and billions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
I think it almost reached $1 trillion. I could be wrong, but I know Boeing, just that one company, Boeing itself spent like $43 billion on stock buybacks.
Funny.
They should have tucked that money under the mattress.
They should have. I know.
Or a shoebox.
Yeah, something like that. Instead of just trying to benefit themselves, and then now they're requesting more money. You remember? I guess this was last week when we talked about it. But how this country and the Fed was pumping so much money to kind of like
$1 trillion, 1.1 trillion. It went like this. It said, whoop, yeah. That's all it did. It was like,
that's what I was talking about. So the effect that it had on the stock market was just what you just exhibited right there.
That's all it did. They were willing to pump $1.1 trillion into the market, even though
didn't do anything.
It didn't do anything, even though they had to stop the trading.
They had to do it again.
They had to stop the trading
again. There was a little bit of a bump. I believe that was on. I forgot. Now these days are just running together. Tuesday or Wednesday. There was somewhat of a jump, and then the next day, back down.
You know what else though? It starts to fall when someone has press conferences. I'm dead serious. That jump starts to fall when someone, I'm not going to say his name. He could be our POTUS.
So he should stay away from the mic.
He should stay away from that. But seriously, but for real. I do think that's why Trump is trying to change his rhetoric. Because maybe he figured out, and maybe his advisors figured out that, okay, I could maintain this same rhetoric for my base, for the Fox viewer. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because I just want to maintain a certain image as a president and make it seem like I'm, everything's good. And I could fool, my folks with that. But I can't fool bankers. And I think he figured that out. He's still trying to interject some sort of like everything's okay. You can still he's still
we're gonna have a celebration.
Yeah. He's still trying to interject that to see if it'll affect the markets.
Yeah.
But he's not doing it the same way. But now at least he's like making like actual steps, taking steps, making moves.
Right.
It's different
to
now.
Actually address it.
So now he's actually addressing it while at the same time trying to interject little things in there to try to like, okay, the market, all right, you see what I'm doing, right? Everything's gonna be okay. We can celebrate, we can party. So he's trying to like coax the investors back into the market. But see, like I said, bankers, they're smarter than his supporters
because
they're not sold on this.
You see exactly. Again, businesses are shutting down, stocks are tanking. I mean, look, no matter who was the president, this was going to be the situation.
Right.
Because there's a loss of revenue. I even saw that Major League Baseball, they're thinking about not even doing their 2020 draft because they're concerned that the teams might not have enough money to pay their draftees. So, I mean, we're talking about stuff we have never seen in this modern history whatsoever. So, again, I mean, this was going to be the likely scenario. Trump, though, he's just trying to, like, will it to, like, positive outcomes. And we're just not there yet. I know the preliminary, you remember when he gave that speech at the White House in the Oval Office talking about closing down or prohibiting travel from other countries, European countries for whatever, a month, I think up until like the end of this month. I think that's probably going to be extended. When we first started talking about this.
But it wasn't absolute, though.
It wasn't absolute.
He was actually allowing Americans to come back.
Yes, Americans. But citizens from other countries, then, they weren't able to come in.
But he didn't say that, though.
No, he didn't say that. But I remember when we first talked about this, I said that it's probably worse. It's probably worse than what we're hearing because of all these businesses that are shutting down and seasons that are being closed, the NCAA tournament being canceled, all of this. It just seemed that as though it's probably going to be worse than what we were currently hearing because of all these billions and billions of dollars of money that was going to be lost. And I think that's what we're seeing. I'm not sure that, I don't think anybody's saying that we're at a point where it's leveling off. I think we're still on the rise.
Well, you have, like you said, you mentioned baseball, but the NBA, they put a 30-day 30-day suspension.
Right.
So that was their initial estimate. So these corporations, essentially that's what these NBA teams are, who invest a lot of money into the endeavor of entertainment basketball, have shut their operations down. So that means that they're taking it seriously. Yeah. So they understand the gravity of the situation, especially seeing as some of their top players have tested positive.
That's right.
So number one, they understand how serious it is, and they understand that it probably would get worse if they didn't do what they did. And also they don't want to be held liable at the end of the day.
True that, because not only from the aspect of having players around each other and sweating and stuff like that, infecting each other, but the fans too. Yes, the fans that are sitting in close proximity to each other. You're creating a very dangerous situation for everybody. Major League Baseball, like I was telling you earlier, their preliminary outlook was that the beginning of the season was to start later this month, at the end of March. They pushed it back 2 weeks. I said before, I don't think it's just going to be 2 weeks. Now they have pushed it back even further. Now it's at least 2 months. So again, we just have not seen things like this happen before. And there's just no telling what it's going to get to. When is going to be the point where it may start leveling off. Again, U.S. officials are saying that it may do this a few times. It may look like it's gone and then it just reemerges. So we may have more than one of these kind of shut down America type of situations in the next maybe 18 months. We just don't know. Now, Tuesday was voting day. Okay? Now, there were 4 states that were scheduled to take place in the Democratic primary voting, and that was Ohio, Illinois, Florida, and Arizona. One of those states was, again, Ohio. They suspended their voting. Now, with a lot of dramatics, they suspended it. Because earlier, I believe the Republican governor, Mike DeWine, said that, it's going to be okay. This was leading up to it. It's going to be okay. We're going to go forward with it. Then Governor DeWine said, nah, you know what? This is a health emergency. There's a health risk. We're not going to put our people through this. No, we got to suspend it. We got to push it back. Then there was a court challenge on the same day. There was a court challenge to that. This was happened on Monday. It was a court challenge. A judge ruled that no, the voting must take place as scheduled. Mike DeWine after that said, nah, we're not listening to that judge. We're going to shut this thing down. We're not going to go ahead and put people through this. This is a health risk. This is a health emergency. There's no way we're going to do this. So Ohio did not vote on Tuesday, but the other states did. Florida, Illinois, and Arizona. It's funny that, and I'm sure there were certain similar situations, but in Arizona, the Phoenix mayor on that day had declared a state of emergency in Phoenix, and so, starting at like 8 p.m. that night on Tuesday, primary voting day. State of emergency, but vote.
That doesn't make sense because even the recommendations put forth by the CDC talked about social distancing.
Yes.
Like if you do go out, try to avoid crowds larger than what he said, 10.
Yeah, it went from 500
to 50 to 25 to 10.
Now we're at like 10.
What's funny is that was at that press conference where Trump was going over those suggested guidelines. He said groups of more than 10. There was like 15 people like standing behind him.
I know, yeah.
And then the very next press conference, they had like 6. The very next one.
I saw that he pointed out at a recent conference that the reporters were sitting too close together.
That's why.
So
yeah,
they had to.
That's why, like, if you look at the press room now, from the president's vantage point, from the cameras that are behind the president,
right,
they're like all sparse.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But yeah, it doesn't make sense if you're telling people to stay away from nightclubs, stay away from bars, entertainers have canceled their tours and their concerts. You have a lot of Zoomer shaming going on right now because I've seen the scenes and the spring break scenes. Look, I you know why I'm not going to shame them? Because I know good and well, and I don't think anybody should shame them. Yeah, it's whack. I've seen the videos of people saying stuff like, oh, I self-medicate and I'm young, I'm fine. And we're just turning up. I've seen all the videos. I'm not going to shame them. You know why? Because these are 18 and 19-year-olds. And anybody who's 30, 40, 50, 60, 70-year-olds who are now kind of settled down now, you know good and well you would have been turning up too. You had spring break. I think a lot of people at that age would have been. I'm not saying I would, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people who are shaming a lot of these Zoomers for, being on the beach, going out, being on Bourbon Street in Louisiana. The police had to, try to force people off Bourbon Street, but some of these people would have been partying too.
I'll agree with you and disagree. I think that a lot of these people that are shaming them may have been the same way had they been younger and been out there being irresponsible.
It's whack. I'm not saying
that's why I said they should be shamed. That's why I say they should be shamed, because it is whack. And no matter if you're older now, but you would have done it later, whatever, it should be shamed because it's whack. It's dangerous. You should be better than that. I mean, I know that a lot of these young people are immature and they feel like they're like they can't get sick, and it hasn't really affected anybody that's younger. It hasn't caused them to die or anything. But it's not about that. It's about you possibly spreading it to somebody else that may be ill or older, and then they die.
True, but the flip side of this is most of their expenditures, most of their travels, and most of how they are able to go on these I guess these turn up vacations is how. Who is bankrolling it?
Well, daddy and mommy, right?
Daddy and mommy.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's not the case for all of them.
Yeah,
but
a lot of
again, I think it goes a little bit deeper than just like, oh, these entitled kids, not listening to anybody, putting people's lives in danger. A lot of this is paid for by their parents. A lot of these are the people, going out are college kids. But like I said, like back onto the subject about social distancing, while at the same time, primary voting is taking place. That to me makes no sense. If all these recommendations are out there for all these other activities, why wouldn't it be the same for polling places, considering a large amounts of people gather there as well?
Yeah, because when you're talking about social distancing and not having more than 10 people in a group in these surroundings, you can't realistically do that with voting. You can't just do that. Now, I know that some of these numbers were depressed, especially in Illinois, I believe. The turnout was a lot less than it historically is. But that's just the reality. We haven't faced this before. Again, in the modern era, we haven't faced this. You got to deal with it. So if you got to push back voting, you got to do it. You're going to have it at some point, but you can't do it now when we know we're on the rise in terms of confirmed cases and the spreading. You just can't do the things the same way that you have been doing them. So it would have been smart to push back that voting, but it did not happen. You talked earlier about Joe Biden saying that, yeah, get out there and vote, this and that. It wasn't just him. It was other people from his campaign, notably Simone Sanders, who is a senior aide to Joe Biden's campaign. She was on the cable news airwaves recently. I believe it was either Sunday or Monday following the debate that Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden had. And this is a clip of what she said.
Our democracy is extremely important. And even in times of strife in this country, we have to do our duty. So the CDC and folks have said it's safe out there for Tuesday. So I don't know what Senator Sanders was talking about, but I'll tell you, Governor DeWine said it was safe in Ohio. So I encourage people to get out there and vote on Tuesday.
So that probably had to be on Sunday night. And Bernie Sanders in his campaign, several members of his campaign were saying that, it probably doesn't behoove of everybody to get out there and vote on Tuesday. I mean, if this is the health risk that everybody is saying it is, and we're talking about groups of 10, more than that being a significant health risk, then we shouldn't do it. And then Simone Sanders is responding to that, saying that Mike DeWine says it's okay, so go ahead and do it. And then on Monday, Mike DeWine said, yeah, it's not okay.
So why would she say that? Did she talk to DeWine? Did she get some sort of word from anybody at his office? Why would she say that? So not only did she, in my opinion, she lied. She pretty much lied. I just don't think she actually verified whether that was true or not.
Yeah.
Two, she also name dropped the CDC, which was not true either.
That wasn't true.
So both of those things were not. So she's name dropping the CDC and Mike DeWine, the governor of Ohio, saying that they said it was okay. They said it was okay to vote, which both of those were not true. You know what? She could have said all the other things, but not included those two things. She would have still got criticized.
Oh, yeah.
But not
because you're putting people in dangerous situations. Why would you do that?
Because
so your candidate can win?
Yeah, it's like
he can win later, right?
So you're lying to people, saying that these authorities said it was okay. Now, why would you need to do that? Because people need to hear something like that. People need to. It lends
more credence to your argument.
Exactly. People need to hear some sort of I don't want to call it a buzzword, but they need some reassurance that what they're going to do is, okay.
Right. And it'll be safe. They're prepared for this.
So I'm going to name drop. I'm going to name drop Mike DeWine, and I'm going to name drop the CDC. Because, like you said, it adds some validity to her point, which is kind of sinister, in my opinion. That's kind of sinister.
This shows that, of course, they don't really care about people. If you're worried about votes more so than people's health, then how can you actually ever advocate for people if you're I guess engaged in some kind of narrative like that?
We know the makeup of a lot of Joe Biden supporters. He excels with the older crowd.
He does excel with the older
what I call the I don't know. They're in the danger age category. Yeah. They're above that.
He does very well with those people.
Yeah, as far as when I'm talking about the COVID-19, they're in that danger zone.
They are.
You know what I'm saying? So it's interesting.
Why would you get those mugs out?
Why would you get those mugs out? I was like, I guess, That's a perfect metaphor, though. Because if you look at Joe Biden's politics, right? Like, all of Joe Biden's politics over the years has not just negatively affected, like, black people, not just negatively affected working people, but, his advocacy negatively affected old people. Mm-hmm. His advocacy sought to. It wasn't successful at times, but most of it was. If you're talking about, like, the bankruptcy bill,
yeah,
or if you're talking about him trying to cut Social Security, all those affect old people.
But maybe he just needed them to do him a solid, though, because
exactly, die for him.
Yeah.
That's the metaphor for his whole campaign. Like, he kills old people.
Bernie Sanders is appealing to, younger people, right? So if on voting day you're being truthful about who's really at risk at this, or who's most at risk for contracting this illness and really, having some serious outcomes, that would probably depress voting for a certain segment of his voting base. Maybe they wouldn't come out, but the younger people would, because they feel like, the worse they get a cough, worse they get maybe a fever, they'll recover.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
you're
all
right,
senators.
but it would only makes sense if Bernie Sanders didn't say shit. That would only make sense if Bernie Sanders didn't put out his own advisor.
That's true.
Trying to kind of dissuade.
So he's just an
people,
evil bastard.
Yeah, just dissuade people from coming out. It would have made sense if Bernie says, "Hey, I know this that Rona's out there, but hey, we gotta
get out there.
We
gotta
get
do what we gotta do."
Now, if he said that, then I'd be like, okay, I understand why Biden had to do what he had to do and say that, but he didn't. So it just seems as if Biden is trying to...
An evil bastard.
Yes, he is essentially grope and sniff Skeletor.
Yes.
So...
where was I going to go? Oh, yeah. So now other states have postponed their voting. Now this is Louisiana, Kentucky, Georgia, Maryland. They've all pushed back their primary voting date. So the next date is not until, I believe it's April 4th. So we have some time until the next primary. The DNC, in a memo, warned states that if they didn't have their voting day, their primary voting day, by June 9th, then they may face some penalties in terms of delegates. Their delegates may count as half, stuff like that. Which is really, I mean, that part is evil as well, I believe, because June 9th, all right, we are in March, so it's a ways away. I don't think anybody can tell you to any certain degree what we are going to be looking at on June 9th. I don't know if anybody can accurately tell you what it's going to look like on June 9th. Is it still going to be rising on June 9th? I think most people would say no. We should have it leveled off by then. But do we know? Do we know that to be a fact? So to put any type of hard date on anything right now is irresponsible. And it seems like, again, you're not really concerned about the health of people, the well-being of people. You're just concerned about doing what we need to do, get this thing rolling. All right, we need to, get the nominee all settled and ready to go. We need to unite and go after Donald Trump.
That's what it's about. They're trying to speed this process up. They're trying to speed this process up so Joe Biden can go into hiding, because that's what's going to happen. That's what this is really
no
about.
More challenges.
This is why they, they want Bernie to drop out. This is why moderate liberals, the resistance, those supporting Joe Biden, want Bernie to drop out. They say they don't want Bernie to hurt Joe Biden anymore. But that wouldn't be a problem if Joe Biden was a good candidate. Right. I don't think people realize what they're saying when they make that point. I constantly see that. Like,
we saw the same thing in 2016.
He's going to hurt the nominee.
How can you be hurt if you're a good candidate?
How can you hurt if you're a good candidate? How can you be hurt if you're genuinely electable? If you're actually electable, nothing's going to hurt you. If whatever Bernie's bringing up is valid and it's hurting your candidate, what does that say about your candidate? That's the question. And do they really think that Trump is not going to bring those same issues up?
Because there's been many things that Bernie has not addressed that I believe Trump will have no problem whatsoever talking about. No problem whatsoever.
So play patty cake. Play patty cake with the candidate.
But that's not going to work.
So when they get to the general, they're going to get boxed up.
It's only to blame Bernie afterwards. That's all it's going to do.
They're going to get boxed in the eye. Like, Biden is going to get boxed in the eye. Well, yeah, it's going to bleed again. But yeah, he's going to go into hiding once Bernie drops out. And it looks like that's about to happen. I don't think Tulsi would have dropped out and endorsed Biden if she didn't see that coming. Usually when you hear a campaign say, I'm going to, consult with my campaign and we're going to talk it over and see what we need to do, usually that is the precursors to them suspending their campaign. And that's what's been going on with Bernie's campaign. So,
one more thing, though, about the irresponsible voting. We heard the word from Simone Sanders, but she wasn't the only one to, I guess, push back on Bernie Sanders' campaign and his message of it being probably a health risk to just go forward with the voting. So on Twitter, she said, in response to Anthony Zurcher, that said, Sanders in a post-debate interview said he's not sure it makes a lot of sense to hold the Florida, Ohio, Illinois, and Arizona primaries on Tuesday given the coronavirus. So she said, as in...
that's a stupid idea.
Stupid idea.
Like, people should go out and vote.
Civic duty. Yeah. We have to do what we're supposed to do. Now, I don't know if you made note of the time, but that was on March 15th. I believe the time was 7:44 p.m. 3 minutes earlier, same day, 3 minutes earlier, she is responding to story about Representative Devin Nunes. MSNBC said in an appearance on Fox News, Representative Nunes stated, if you're healthy, you and your family, it's a great time to just go to a local restaurant. She says, wow, does Nunes believe he has no responsibility at all to his constituents to look out for their lives and health? Again, this was 3 minutes before she essentially pushed back on Bernie Sanders, stating that we shouldn't go forward with gathering large groups of people together because of the pandemic. But then 3 minutes later, she criticizes a United States House representative.
Because he's a Republican, though. He's a Republican, so he's an easy target. That's the target she's supposed to go after. You know what I'm saying? So that's why she does what she does. It's funny because not only is it like double speak, it's double speak in like close proximity. Like you said, 3 minutes.
3
one
minutes.
From one day to the next.
How can you have those two completely different outlooks to the same subject?
You looking for, you want an answer?
Yeah, I want. I'd rather have an answer from her.
Yeah. But okay, yeah. You won't get one. She's a fraud.
Yeah.
She's a corporate fraud. Yeah. She has that job on MSNBC for a reason. This is the same woman that claimed that black women were walking up to her everywhere she went. Black women were walking up to her and saying that Bloomberg might be able to save the Democratic Party.
This was the same woman that said that Bloomberg might be the best Democratic nominee because he was a former Republican, and that's we need. Probably what we need to
beat a Republican.
Yeah,
we need a Republican. That's how she rationalized it. Has she fully come to terms with that old blog yet? Has she fully come to terms?
It's still there, but she's not really facing any.
Has she actually fully admitted anything about that? She still claims that she doesn't know how it got there. It was hacked. This is the same person we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, we can go down the list of all the Joy-Ann Reid whackness, but we don't have time for that. No. But yeah, she's a complete fraud.
She is.
She is just there to serve as a media figure that is unconditionally allegiant to the Democratic Party and the Democratic nominee. This time is Joe Biden. Quite frankly, Nunes is whack. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
But he is not saying anything different than what people in Joe Biden's campaign were saying, and Joe Biden himself.
Right. If Nunes is whack, then Joy-Ann Reid is whack. That's it. because you're pushing the idea that it would be okay to do just what Nunes said. It's just that Nunes
is a Republican.
Yeah. Anyway, so again, we talked about the voting going down. It took place in some areas. Of course, the voter turnout was depressed, but Biden did win all of those states. He won Florida. He won Ohio. No, not Ohio. Ohio didn't go forward with their voting. He won Illinois and Arizona. Some states by bigger margins than others. I believe the biggest margin was in Florida. He won that by, but he won it very comfortably. It wasn't, a real challenge. So Bernie Sanders, he has not dropped out of the race yet. It is looking more and more unrealistic that he will be able to attain the Democratic nomination, and that's just real. So he is taking some time out. He hasn't, again, said that he was going to drop out. The campaign is saying that there's a long time before the next contest. Again, I believe that's April 4th. Alaska is one of the states that is going to be voting that day. So he has time to make a decision. But the other candidate that was still in the race has ended her campaign, and that is Representative Tulsi Gabbard. So Tulsi Gabbard ended her campaign today on Thursday, and she also at the very same time endorsed Joe Biden for president. Part of what she had to say, quote, "I know Vice President Biden and his wife and am grateful to have called his son Beau, who also served in the National Guard, a friend. Although I may not agree with Vice President on every issue, I know that he has a good heart and is motivated by his love for our country and the American people." End quote. So Tulsi Gabbard drops out, simultaneously endorses Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden, who she herself says that she doesn't agree with on every issue. There's one issue that Tulsi Gabbard, she would claim to be in her wheelhouse. Everybody would say that's her wheelhouse.
She ran on this issue.
She ran on this issue. Not only did she run on this issue, she removed herself from the DNC in 2016.
We're going to talk about that.
Yes, to advocate for Bernie Sanders on this issue. And that issue is foreign policy, because she campaigns on the idea of ending the endless wars. Regime change wars. That's her wheelhouse. She always talks about that. Okay. Mm-hmm. The true cost of war, things like that. And so now she has endorsed a man in Joe Biden who supported the Iraq war. Who, when he was the vice president of the United States of America, and really what that means is that he was the president because he made all these moves. He was in charge of so many things. I believe the Yemen war started under Biden's tenure.
Oh, yeah.
Not Obama's tenure.
No.
But Biden's tenure.
I think that's correct. You now have to call that Biden's tenure.
Yeah, it was Biden's administration. So the Yemen war, we got to put that on Biden. It started under Biden. The U.S. involvement in that war started under Biden, and it didn't stop. It's still continuing under Trump. Now, we can criticize Trump all we want to right now, we do, but still going back to when it started, that started under President Biden.
I will ask you this, though. When Bernie ultimately drops out and endorses the eventual nominee, Joe Biden, what makes him campaigning for Joe Biden different than Tulsi dropping out and endorsing Joe Biden, that same person? Because there are definitely fundamental issues that Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, they're divergent on, right?
Yeah, most of the big ones.
Most of the big ones.
Right.
So what makes that different? Is it because Bernie Sanders was considered a front runner, and he is expected to do it?
Yeah.
And Tulsi Gabbard not only was it expected to do it, she didn't have to do
it.
Yeah. Also, everybody was expecting her to endorse Bernie Sanders.
Yes.
So I do think it's interesting for a lot of different reasons. And I think the biggest reason is, why didn't she drop out earlier and endorse Bernie Sanders? I'm not saying it would have had a real material consequence. When I say material, I mean in voting ballots.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it would have had a big consequence, a significant consequence, in a way of boosting Bernie Sanders. But it just seemed as if like the narrative was those two are kind of partners in all this. Especially talking about people who are on like the independent left, not independent progressive, that pay attention to indie news like Young Turks, Secular Talk, Jimmy Dore, whoever, what's the chick, Crystal Ball, any of these, Jamal Charles, Mike from Humanist Report, what about Jordan Sheraton, anybody who pays attention to, leftist media, independent media, most of those people would, say that Tulsi and Bernie were closely aligned, more so than Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. So everybody thought that Tulsi Gabbard was going to somehow rise to the occasion
and get behind
Bernie Sanders, and you would have thought she would have done that early on. It would have made more sense for her to do that early on and not wait until it was just Biden and Sanders remaining.
So a lot of the question is about like what the hell she was doing this entire time.
Well, yeah, what the hell was she doing this entire time? Because
she wasn't getting a lot of delegates. I mean, it started out that way. Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina. She was not performing even a little bit well. I mean, Elizabeth Warren wasn't performing well. And we talked about how she was failing.
And she dropped out before Tulsi.
Tulsi Gabbard was barely registering on the map of anywhere. I mean, she just had virtually no support whatsoever. I think she ended up with 2 delegates. And that was I think that happened on the first Super Tuesday. For me, I don't have a lot. Ultimately, now I will say it like this. Ultimately, coming to the decision to support Joe Biden is something that I believe all of the Democrats are going to do, Bernie Sanders included. So if Tulsi Gabbard comes to this decision and she gets behind Joe Biden, I expect that to happen. Now, it's a bridge too far for a lot of us, and I understand that. But we understand that these elected officials, that's what they're going to do. So I wouldn't hold so much condemnation for her because she does that. But when you look at that she didn't drop out earlier and get behind Bernie Sanders, that's a mark. And then also when you talk about that this move right here comes at a point when Bernie Sanders has not even dropped out yet. So even though we see all these media heads, these political commentators saying that the race is essentially over, Bernie Sanders has not dropped out of the race yet. If Tulsi Gabbard is the progressive that she is, and there's still officially 2 candidates that are in the race, why are you going to make this decision to support Joe Biden now before Bernie Sanders has even said a word about what his future is in this campaign? It just looks like a really bad decision. It
looks like a power move.
It does look like a power
move.
Well, we know that Tulsi Gabbard is not running for re-election for her seat in Congress. So she's going to be looking towards the future in what way she can be effective. I don't know what. I don't know. I mean, Pete Buttigieg came out early and supported Joe Biden. Klobuchar came out early and supported Joe Biden. They had voters to give to Joe Biden.
So that made sense.
Tulsi Gabbard, what are you giving them? And what are you expecting in return for this?
And why didn't she just go ahead and endorse them when they all did? When Klobuchar, Buttigieg, Harris, and O'Rourke did. Why didn't she just go ahead and jump in?
If she's gonna do it now,
now it's almost like it's just a weird move. And this is something we talked about, during the primaries, specifically during the debates. There's something that we noticed, and there was something that we noticed that Tulsi Gabbard wasn't doing, attacking a certain person, even though that this person was considered the front runner from the jump. As soon as Biden announced He was considered the front runner, and this was reflected in the polls too, because he was Obama's VP. Everybody's always talking about continuing the Obama legacy, so of course Biden is going to be the front runner. And what we did notice is that Tulsi Gabbard didn't have anything to say about Joe Biden. Again, her whole, I guess, the narrative that surrounds her campaign is one that features her standing up to power, right? This is what they said, this is what her supporters said when she kind of clapped back at Hillary Clinton, right? Oh, look at her standing up to the power structure. I was like, Hillary Clinton is, she has a lot of power, but she is not like actually in the mix right now. She doesn't have a government position. So she doesn't really have a lot of power administratively. Not to say she doesn't have any power, any sway, any influence. But I didn't really think that was challenging power, because she was clapping back at somebody who was like really not in the race. Somebody who we do want to shut up, but really, I mean, she's not really challenging power unless she's challenging people in power. So if she was actually going to challenge power, we figured she would challenge a person that represented that was currently running, and that would be Joe Biden. And we noticed that she did not do that, and we thought that was just kind of weird. Now, we didn't make anything of it. We just said that just
oh no, we made something.
No. When I mean we made something of it, but we didn't like draw a conclusion to what it meant. We said, okay, we noticed it and we don't like it and something's up, but we didn't we didn't speculate as to what was going on, because there's no way for us to know. Now she comes out and endorses him and did not drop out to endorse Bernie. Something is amiss here. Something is not right. And anytime we did a video on Tulsi Gabbard, even when we presented facts, and even when we presented I would call it an objective analysis on some of our positions, we got shitted on. Like, we got pummeled on our Facebook page and our YouTube comments. Everybody had something to say. Even if we addressed something that was concerning about her, everybody had something to say. So anytime we were reflecting upon a video, upon like comments that were issued on our Facebook page or YouTube, we get into conversations, probably usually after the show. And something we never brought up, right? Something that we never brought up and we said we were going to bring up at the appropriate time is what made Tulsi famous, right? Amongst leftists and amongst progressives. And what was that, Will?
Dropping out to support, removing herself from the DNC. She was a chair, I think she was the vice chair of the DNC, and she stepped down to support Bernie Sanders 2016.
So how did that make her look, right?
It made her look progressive.
It made her look like just off of that. And we gave her credit for that.
That one move.
We gave her credit for that too. It was like, that is a huge move.
Yeah.
So she got instant credit for that. So she was seen as somebody who had the mindset of a reformer, the mindset of a revolutionary, the mindset of somebody that just wanted to see certain changes.
Doing the right thing because it's the right thing.
Doing the right thing because it's the right thing. But you know what I'm guilty of? I never even asked this question. The DNC just didn't become the way it is yesterday or last week or in 2016. It's always been like that. It's always been a political machine, right? I don't think anybody can deny that. It's always been a political machine. It's always been catering to Washington insiders, aka the establishment. So why did Tulsi Gabbard want to be a part of that in the first place? Because before she stepped down, she had to step up. Anybody ever asked that question? Why would she want to be a part of that anyway?
Devil's advocate. She wants to change from within.
Boo.
You know that's what her answer would be.
I don't care.
I'm going to change things from within. Hey, she's the United States representative as well. We know how corrupt this whole entity is. So I'm going to change things from within. Look,
unacceptable.
I remember, look,
inconceivable.
This was a pivotal moment during the campaign when she was interviewed by, I think it was Fox Sports. She was interviewed by Fox Sports, and we played some of that interview. This was months ago. And she was asked about the beef between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And she said she didn't really want to get into that. That's their thing. But she did want to talk about Kamala Harris being unqualified. She was unqualified because she doesn't have the foreign policy chops to become the next commander-in-chief. Unqualified. She doesn't have any experience to that regard. She didn't say anything whatsoever about Joe Biden's significant experience in promoting these endless wars and these regime change wars that she is so against. She had no smoke for Joe Biden whatsoever, but she had smoke for somebody that, she's right, doesn't have the same history as Joe Biden.
Doesn't have any history.
So it's like no history is worse than having
bad
a horrible, awful history.
Bump smoke.
Really?
She didn't even have water vapor. She didn't have water vapor for Joe Biden.
It was nothing.
So like it's not about what Tulsi has said. It's about what she didn't say and about who she avoided criticizing, and that always was suspicious to us.
Wasn't Biden president when Libya happened?
Kind of like went over my head
for a second.
Yeah.
He was president, right? Because all of this, I did this.
It was me.
I did this.
Obama put me in charge. Mandela put me in charge.
He thanked me for getting arrested. Oh boy! But anyway, yeah, that's Tulsi Gabbard. So we'll see what her next move is. Again, she's not running for re-election in Congress, so
maybe
we'll see if she makes her way into.
Maybe she's doing it again. Maybe she's trying to change things from the inside, like you said, like she did when she became the vice chair of DNC, right? Maybe she's trying to do that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I saw Lisa's comment. Me and Will were talking about that earlier. Lisa said something about Jimmy Dore and Nico. Yes, I do believe that maybe we should get some people together and do a wellness check on both of those individuals because we care about them. We don't want them to, hurt themselves. Them jokers on suicide watch. I promise you that. Promise you. Probably Nico more so than Jimmy. But Jimmy's probably, I don't watch his show like I used to, but this joker probably is going off on a tirade right now.
You would think that they would have to be. But there might be some kind of rationalization though. We know there might be some rationalization going on.
You're right. It could either be some hyper rationalizing going on as far as Nico, or he is just crying under a bed somewhere or a table or something.
I haven't checked his Twitter, so I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you have. I haven't. So
but see,
I don't know what his response is.
We didn't have any allegiance towards Tulsi Gabbard.
Not at all, because we've already talked about significant problems with Tulsi Gabbard. So again, this news doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me given what we already knew about her. But I will tell you, I mean, there's one word that I use a lot. It's interesting. This is very interesting. I will tell you, it's very interesting.
So wait, okay, all right. So why did people on the left, why did progressives have a beef with Elizabeth Warren? From 2016.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. She sat on the sidelines, didn't support Bernie Sanders.
See, it would be different. I think it would have been different if a similar dynamic played out in 2016. Not as many people running, but if Elizabeth Warren would have ran with Bernie Sanders, which wouldn't have happened because the reason why Bernie ran was because Elizabeth Warren didn't. But let's just say for hypothetical argument that it was, Hillary, Bernie, Liz, and O'Malley. I can't remember his first name.
Martin.
It would have made sense in that type of situation where they're all running together for Warren to not endorse and then endorse the eventual nominee. That would have made sense, but that's not the situation that was in play. Warren wasn't running. She was on the sideline. So she could have endorsed the person that was the actual progressive then.
Yeah,
closer to her ideology or her supposed ideology. Well, people got mad about it. People was animus went in her direction. They still hold that against her for not endorsing Bernie Sanders.
No doubt.
So
Maybe this will summon some of that anger. Maybe, possibly, it may summon some of that anger.
See. Maybe with some people. But see, I know there are a lot of people who support her.
I thought we were going to say stands.
No.
I thought we were going to say stands.
No.
Okay.
I'm not gonna use that pejorative.
Okay.
But there's a lot of people that like to go to her Instagram and watch her workout videos. And watch her sweat. Watch her do push-ups.
Now you were describing a stand. Now you're describing a stand.
I'm not describing. I'm describing like somebody who is in a parasocial relationship with a political figure, who's idolizing a political figure.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. There's a lot of people who seem to have an affinity for her, an affinity that goes way beyond any kind of like policy position.
Oh yeah,
it's just,
any type of reason or logic.
You know what I'm saying? They like seeing her do them crunches. You like seeing her do them crunches.
Hey man,
you know what I'm saying?
Politics is a lot of I've said it many times. Although we want it to be about the issues and integrity of a person, their actual past, a lot of it is about optics, popularity, celebrity, all of that. So Tulsi definitely has some of that in her fan base, no doubt. All right, so after Biden scored some of these wins on Tuesday night, he spoke, and you could tell he was speaking probably, somewhere privately. It wasn't a rally of anything like that, because we are living in a different time now. We're living in the time of the coronavirus outbreak, so no more of those big, large gatherings, even to celebrate after, a big night for Joe Biden's candidacy. But he did speak, and it was recorded. And in this clip, you're going to hear him make an appeal to Bernie Sanders supporters.
Senator Sanders and I may disagree on tactics, but we share a common vision for the need to provide affordable health care for all Americans, reduce income inequity that has risen so drastically, to tackling the existential threat of our time, climate change. Senator Sanders and his supporters have brought a remarkable passion and tenacity to all of these issues. And together they have shifted the fundamental conversation in this country. So let me say, especially to the young voters who have been inspired by Senator Sanders, I hear you. I know what's at stake. I know what we have to do. Our goal as a campaign, and my goal as a candidate for president, is to unify this party and then to unify the nation.
I didn't know that remarkable passion and tenacity is the new way to describe a Bernie bro.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that was the
because that was what made Bernie bros so vicious and nasty, and they needed to be condemned. But now they're passionate.
Not only that,
they have a tenacity that needs to be celebrated.
Bernie supporters were described as a cult.
Yeah.
Also described as MAGA-like,
Bots.
Trumpian. So why would you want to unify with people who are Trumpian, MAGA-like, Bernie bros, a cult, and bots too? That's one thing that I'm really confused with, because people need to make up their minds. Not necessarily Biden, but Biden supporters and those who advocate for Biden. They need to make up their minds, because are we bots, right? Are we bots that have been put into play by Russians? Or are we actually supporters being commanded by Bernie Sanders? Because it can't be both.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? Because they say Bernie Sanders encourages all these supporters, blah, 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 and then we're called bots. It can't be both. And they can't get votes from bots, right?
Yeah.
So why are they? Who are they trying to encourage? Who are they trying to bring over? They're trying to unite with bots. But let's just say we're not bots, and we're just focusing on what Biden is saying here. That shit went out the window when y'all decided to unify as a centrist Voltron. When you, Buttigieg, Klobuchar, Kamala Harris, and Beto O'Rourke, when that happened, you already sent us a message. You already sent Bernie Sanders supporters a message right there. You said, progressivism. Sorry.
That's true.
Not this time. So when we're talking about unity, when they're talking about unity, when him and people like him and people with his political views and people with his political ideology and history talk about unity, they're just talking about like performative.
Yeah.
They're just trying to it's a performative appeal. Like let's just come together. But I'm not going to really make a significant move left. Let's not unify on something tangible. I just need you to support me. That's what unity means to people like Joe Biden. I just need you to get behind me.
What I didn't like
Even though I don't represent a lot of what you
That was
want.
the message that he was saying there. And what I didn't like was that I didn't like everything. But the message of appealing to Bernie Sanders supporters, saying that, Bernie Sanders and his supporters have done so much and they have shifted the conversation. Okay, so we heard that in 2016. And we are hearing the same thing now. After the race is over, we want to commend Senator Sanders for shifting the conversation and progressing us forward as a nation and really advocating for the things that we need as a people. Okay, so you're telling me a guy that has great ideas and is shifting the conversation. We don't rally behind that guy. We rally behind the guy that has to be pulled along, dragging and screaming.
And actually doesn't end up doing it
Like,
anyway.
why do you keep pitching this idea that Bernie Sanders' ideas and everything that he advocates for and everything that his supporters actually want to see done in the United States of America? Why would you pitch that as a good idea? We need to move in the direction of Bernie Sanders, but we can't actually rally behind Bernie Sanders. That's too far. It means nothing. Everything that he said meant absolutely nothing. And I'll say again, I said it before, we're not rallying behind some guy like Joe Biden that the things that he is saying are not true. We know what egregious lies he tells. I've said it many times on Twitter. I've said it a couple times here on the show as well. Just talking about black people, because we know that's where a lot of his support emanates from. It's black people in the South and black people everywhere as well. We know it's, more vast in the South, but the ability for him to lie to black people about getting arrested, going to see Nelson Mandela, lying many times about participating in march-ins and sit-ins and protests, the ability to lie to black people about that, and then having the absolute audacity to show up in commemoration of Bloody Sunday on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, to be able to do that and black people not make you pay the price for that, for them to vote for you anyways, is so unbelievable. I mean, I'm not sure if I can actually capture that in words.
Well, then, I had the same sentiment when looking at the exit polls in Florida, when they asked the question about which candidate do you see getting us to Medicare for all? What candidate is best suited to implement a Medicare for all system? And what candidate is actually proposing it? And what candidate is actually advocating for it? Do you know what these voters in Florida overwhelmingly do you know who they overwhelmingly said
was most likely to
get that done? Not just Medicare for all, but who is going to keep Social Security safe? Those are the two exit poll questions.
Right. And
who came out on top in both of those?
That was Biden.
That was Biden. Interesting enough.
Even though he doesn't, on terms of Social Security, he's advocated for cutting it many times. And then on Medicare for all, he doesn't even advocate for it. And he suggested that if it came to his desk, he would veto it.
But yet people look at him to get those things done, or that one thing done. And then people, as far as Medicare for all, and in regard to Social Security, they think
he
it's
will
safe.
be their savior.
Their savior. And this is what the voters think. Now, it looked as... So what does that tell you?
I can't, man. I can't.
No, and that's we can talk about voters up and down as far as being uninformed, but there's a definite gap. If you're talking about mainstream media consumption. Older people and younger people.
There is.
There's like a major gap.
Yeah.
Like when you're 50 and over,
tendency to watch
like,
it. Yeah.
it's like a major gap. It's like 40%, like a 40% difference.
Younger people are probably more likely to go to YouTube, watch independent
I do
media,
think that
stuff
that
like
plays a factor, and I do think there are individuals, especially Biden supporters, anti-Bernie folks, who are intentionally not factoring that in. They're talking about how, Bernie's campaign failed. It's a failure. See, he's not resonating with people. And I'm just like, how do you not take into account the corporate media? Like, what if Bernie Sanders had a media apparatus like MSNBC, CNN, Washington Post, the New York Times, you name it, that would constantly push his agenda and his message 24/7? What do you think would happen? Knowing that most people pay attention, most of the voters, most of the base pay attention to those networks. What do you think would happen to Bernie's message?
Yeah,
I mean, that's
be
a factor.
supported more strongly, especially in cases of older people.
Yeah, so there's this idea that simply because people voted for Biden, simply because people vote for an establishment candidate, that must mean people like the way it is, and people trust that that person is, going to get things done and not be corrupt, right? But I don't think that's the case. People could be against Washington insider politics. People can be against the establishment, that upholds, corruption, greed, all that stuff. Like, they can be against that stuff, inequality, whatever. They can be against that stuff and still support a candidate that upholds all those things. You know what I'm saying? I think the problem comes when they are not making that connection. They're not making a connection between all those things that they claim to hate about our government and then the politician or political figure that they idolize. They're not making that connection, and that's the problem.
If Joe Biden was deemed disqualified in 1988, running for president, if Joe Biden was not a good candidate and made no noise whatsoever in 1988, but the same candidate with more lies now seems destined to become the Democratic nominee in 2020, it tells you that there's been a shift. There's been a shift across the board. Now, did people back in 1988, did they have like more of an ability to have critical thinking skills than they are now? No. I think critical critical thinking skills are very, very low.
You said it right first time. You said critical stinking skills. That was that was
the way I should.
That was a good slip.
But yeah, I think it's always been low. I think most people are followers, and they have this proclivity to just insert the news. And I mean, if it's being presented to you in a rational type of way, then you're likely to believe it because it's coming from a source that you trust. And no matter what people say nowadays about how they don't trust the media, no, lots of people trust the media.
Exactly. When people say, I don't trust the media, and this happens on both, I don't even say right or left because I don't consider a lot of people, I don't consider the media right or left. They're just trying to uphold, their end of the bargain as far as being a funnel for corporate talking points. But I'm with you, man.
I just think, again, critical thinking skills, I don't think it has risen to a significant level. People were fooled back then, but the media has changed. So they told the truth about Biden in 1988, but they're not telling the truth about they're not telling the truth about Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden in 2020. In the debate that was held on Sunday night, Joe Biden lied
about
many
everything.
times.
About everything.
Yeah. And he said that he didn't advocate for cutting Social Security throughout his career. And I mean, look, if you're saying that he's advocated for the entirety of 40 years, no, he hasn't done that. Okay. So maybe that's stretching the truth. You can say it's stretching the truth, but you can't disagree with reality that there have been times throughout his career that he has advocated for, saying that, yes, it's on the table. So it's different than saying he has voted for it, but he has definitely advocated for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of that, all these social programs being on the table to being cut. He has advocated for that. He said that he did it. CNN didn't push back whatsoever. So, I mean, if the media was actually doing its job to be, I guess, a responsible news broadcasting organization, not just CNN, but everywhere as well, all of these corporate media outlets, if they were actually treating their job with, being like with some integrity, then maybe people would have got the same idea about Joe Biden that people got in 1988, and he would have been disqualified as a candidate. So again, like I said, it's not people. I don't think people are smarter or dumber than in 1988.
Right.
I don't think they have a lesser ability to understand and process information and think for themselves than in 1988. It's just that what they are being served is quite different than 30 years ago.
The media cycle is much different. Like I said, the 24/7 media cycle didn't exist back then the same way it exists now.
No, yeah, that's true. And to the access, like you say,
The
the 24, the access, having it on your phone, having it on your tablet, having it on your watch. You're getting all these headlines, all these. It's just different. It's just different.
And Biden is going to, he's trying to get the support of Bernie Sanders supported. He's trying to get the support of Bernie voters.
Yep.
People who support.
He wants the Bernie Bros.
He wants the Bernie Bros.
But they're not called Bernie Bros anymore.
No, oh yeah, definitely. He can't be called Bernie Bros because he wants our votes now.
Yeah.
It's more than just about the votes, right? And the support in the, I guess, casting your ballot type of way. What's going to have to happen in the general is he's going to have volunteers. Because when you talk about the base of support that Bernie Sanders had, everyone brings it up. It was a lot of young people, a lot of young people. So that allowed Bernie Sanders to tap into an age group that is more mobile, can walk around more, can canvass, can knock on doors. I guess more acquainted with technology too. Mm-hmm. That's the advantage that Bernie had. So it's not just the support he had, just in regards to like people's like rhetoric, but ground support. And the fact that most of Bernie's base was young, I think helped him out as far as his ground game.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right. Is Joe Biden going to be able to convince a base of young voters not only to vote for him, because that's only part of it, but to go on the ground for him the same way that they did for Bernie? I don't think so.
Probably not.
And definitely he's not going to convince people in his age bracket to do that. There are going to be some, but I think it's going to be a huge drop-off if you're talking about, because it's not just about support as far as people who are going to vote for you. Like, usually the people who volunteer for your campaign, they support you as well. They're not just volunteering for your campaign for a job. They're doing that. They're putting their blood, sweat, and tears because they believe in you. They believe in you. There's a lot of people who don't believe in you. There's also a huge chunk of young people who don't believe in you. So where are you going to find these volunteers?
But also not his fault, but the coronavirus.
Unfortunate.
Not his fault, but the coronavirus is going to put a significant strain on having the outreach.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't think there's going to be a lot of excitement in Joe Biden's candidacy. It's not like we haven't seen this movie before. We just saw it 3 years ago. 4 years ago?
Yeah.
Almost 4 years ago we saw this movie.
3 or 4 years ago, and prior to that, it was what? 8 years prior to that, in 2004 and 2000.
Yeah. We've seen this movie a few times when the Democratic Party puts up, in modern history now, when we're talking about the last 30, 40 years, Democratic Party puts up somebody that is not very, it doesn't really seem to address the concerns of voters, not in a really authentic way. It seems to be they just want to keep things moving at a particular pace. And right now it's the Obama pace. We want to keep things moving at the Obama pace. But people want something more than that.
But he's not even running the same campaign Obama was running. That's the thing. Like, how is Joe Biden going to just swing from the coattails?
Well, he was next to a black man. He was next to a black man.
How is he swinging on Obama's coattails but not even running the same campaign? So,
but people are projecting it like
as much as he name drops Obama, and as much as people name drop Obama on behalf of Biden, great. That's all well and good. But if you're not even running the same campaign Obama did, then what good is it actually doing? And it'll be funny, right? Because what it looks like it's going to be is Trump sweeping the hell out of this dude. That's what it looks like now. I can't say what it's going to look like in October, but just by how Biden looks now, and if I'm projecting into the future in regard to this coronavirus situation and how it comes out, it could look real bad for Biden. It could look really bad for Biden.
We got a clip of how Biden looks right now. Okay. Again, this was Tuesday night after he had scored a couple wins. This was before some of the results in Arizona came forward. But this was at the end of his address. This was at the very end of his address.
Thank you all. Thank you all for listening. Oh. Thanks. Okay.
You can't tell me that looks good. I don't care if you're a Biden supporter. I'm sure there will be some attempt to,
spin
it, make it seem as though it's something that it clearly is.
Maybe he was distracted by the light from the camera, the red light.
But did it look like he was distracted, or did it look like he was not present?
Like he was gone. It looked like he was in Never Neverland or the Upside Down world, or he was in some sort of mental labyrinth, or he was stuck in a mental maze. However you want to say it, it looked like when somebody forgets.
Yeah.
Not
like they're
not
that they're gone.
They're like not that like, oh, I forgot why I walked in the room.
I did that earlier today.
Yeah, like that. Not that.
Why
did I walk
here?
here? No, this is a case where he forgot that the room existed.
Yeah.
Like what? Like
he didn't know what
where
the
he
heck was
like,
happening.
Where am I? And
this isn't bullying either. This is not bullying. This is just responding to what we are seeing from Joe Biden. Not just in this situation. There have been many times where it just seems like Mr. Obama doesn't really know what's going on, and this is the guy. This is the guy everybody's rallying behind now. This is the best guy for the job.
What'd you say about his wife?
Here too.
Like, cause when she's standing next to him, and how it's just weird. Like she's paying attention to him, like her attentiveness and what it looks like. What does it look like to you?
She looks like she knows that she's his caretaker. She looks like she needs to take care of Joe Biden because he's not at his best.
And it's like, and she's real good at it. I will say she's real good at it. So, cause she is his wife. So she knows the signs, and she knows what to look for, and she knows when to snap into action. Mm-hmm. And if you notice, she did snap into action. It looked like, just touching him on his back just rebooted him.
Right.
And,
We've seen that before.
We've seen that before.
Yeah.
And that's what she's there for. That's what she's so close to him for. Not just supporting him as a presidential candidate.
No, she's his caretaker.
Caregiver? Caretaker?
Whatever.
Caregiver?
Yeah.
Caregiver? Yeah. But yeah, that whew, I'm sorry, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna work. That's just not gonna work. Not in the general election. Like I said, I just don't think he has enough to go up against Trump. I just don't think it's there.
I don't know, man. It doesn't look good. If he's looking this bad right now, I don't think there's a chance he's gonna look better going forward. I don't think that's reality. So just giving you an update. Coronavirus, the numbers globally. So earlier I said that there were about 242,000 cases. This was as of earlier today. So I believe it was, that was around noon or about 1 o'clock earlier today. And what I say? No, hold on. It was about 229,000 cases. Now, 6 hours later, it's been updated. And as of, that's about 6 o'clock p.m., 7 o'clock p.m., it's gone up globally about 13,000. The deaths have risen about 500 globally, just in about 6 hours. That's crazy. That's crazy. 600 deaths reported in 6 hours. My gosh. So, anyway, we didn't talk about the debate because, we didn't broadcast on Tuesday. There's a couple clips that we can play, though. The first one we want to play is about the coronavirus. So definitely that's something to talk about. And the candidates did spend a large amount of the debate discussing the coronavirus and what they would do, what they intend to do, what's needed, this and that. But the first clip that we're going to show you, I believe, they're talking about why single payer won't work. So, of course, this is a narrative coming from Joe Biden.
If you were president right now, what would you do to make sure every sick American is able to get treatment so the U.S. does not suffer the same fate as Italy, where doctors have to decide right now who gets life-saving treatment and who does not?
Jake, let's be honest and understand that this coronavirus pandemic exposes the incredible weakness and dysfunctionality of our current healthcare system. Now, we're spending twice as much per person on healthcare as the people of any other country. How in God's name does it happen that we end up with 87 million people who are uninsured or underinsured, and there are people who are watching this program tonight who say, I'm not feeling well. Should I go to the doctor? But I can't afford to go to the doctor. What happens if I am sick? It's going to cost thousands of dollars for treatment. Who's going to feed my kids? We are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people. We're spending so much money, and yet we are not even prepared for this pandemic. How come we don't have enough doctors? How come hospitals in rural areas are shutting down? How come people can't afford to get the prescription drugs they need because we have a bunch of crooks who are running the pharmaceutical industry, ripping us off every single day? And I'll tell you something right now. In the midst of this epidemic, you got people in the pharmaceutical industry are saying, oh, wow, what an opportunity to make a fortune. So the word has got to go out, and I certainly would do this as president. You don't worry, people of America, do not worry about the cost of prescription drugs. Do not worry about the cost of the health care that you're going to get, because we are a nation, a civilized, democratic society. Everybody, rich and poor, middle class, will get the care they need. The drug companies will not rip us off.
Thank you, Senator. Vice President Biden, some medical experts are saying the only true way to control this virus is through a national quarantine, requiring every American other than essential personnel to stay home. Would you take that unprecedented step of a national lockdown?
What I would do is what we did in our administration. I would call a meeting in the Situation Room. of all the experts in America dealing with this crisis. I would sit them down and I would do exactly what we did then. What is it that we need? Listen to the experts. What do we need? And with all due respect to Medicare for all, you have a single payer system in Italy. It doesn't work there. It has nothing to do with Medicare for all. That would not solve the problem at all. We can take care of that right now by making sure that no one has to pay for treatment, period, because of the crisis. No one has to pay for whatever drugs are needed, period, because of the crisis. No one has to pay for hospitalization because of the crisis, period. That is a national emergency, and that's how it's handled. It is not working in Italy right now, and they have a single-payer system.
See, he's being disingenuous because with Italy, it had to do with their preparedness and how they responded to it, and not necessarily what type of healthcare system they have. So he's being completely disingenuous there.
Yeah, it wasn't because of the single-payer system. Like you said, it was the preparedness. It was... And I made that comparison between Italy and South Korea earlier on the show, that in South Korea, their rate of testing was far greater and far more responsible than what you had in Italy. That is why the difference between the cases and deaths in South Korea does not compare to the rise in cases and deaths in Italy. So the healthcare system, though, it is relevant to talk about because here in the United States of America, regardless of if we had the appropriate response or not, which we didn't, and that is because of testing like Italy, you could say that a lot of the reason why people didn't even feel like they could go get a test was because of the cost.
So what does that have to do with? So what are they're afraid of the cost, which means what? If they knew those costs would be taken care of.
Right on the front end. Right on the front end. So before we get to our president, if he's responsible or irresponsible, in this reality, we have a president that acted very irresponsibly on the front end. But it would have mattered
regardless.
It would have mattered regardless, but still, you would have, I guess the results wouldn't have been where they are right now if we had a system in place where people weren't feeling scared about the cost that they would incur had they gone to go get tested, had that been an option. So the single payer system, yeah, that would have been a helpful addition to these United States of America. So by Biden saying that, it didn't work in Italy, like you said, he's being disingenuous. It would have been a value to have that here in the United States because, again, people would have felt like, well, I don't got to worry about the cost whatsoever. I can go and get tested. And then if they got tested, then if they were positive for the test, then they would know that, oh, shoot, I need to quarantine myself instead of me just sitting here not knowing, me being infected.
I get treatment and quarantine myself. So that has an effect on everyone. So regardless of the responsiveness of the Trump administration, yeah, it definitely comes into play as far as people being able to afford tests and being able to afford treatment. So that has monumental consequences. Yeah. That has monumental consequences.
He was being completely disingenuous. It definitely matters.
It definitely matters. Of course he was being disingenuous. We're talking about...
With all due respect to Medicare for all. That's what he said. With all due respect to Medicare for all.
Yeah, and he didn't offer any kind of argument, actually. And he didn't say anything about pharmaceutical drug pricing as well. And there's a reason why he didn't say anything, because he was the one who squashed it.
Yeah.
He squashed it. He was against that bill that Bernie introduced that would prevent pharmaceutical companies from raising prices, that would allow the government to negotiate reasonable drug prices. Yeah, Biden was against that. Of course he doesn't care.
Later, he talked about how, again, single payer is not necessary because what we would do is just pass a bill to where all of the treatment, all of the testing is free for everybody. So it was hard to make out if he was pointing to the House bill that is trying to, I say trying. I mean, it's trying to address this problem, but again, it doesn't address the problem with everybody. It doesn't talk about, recouping the cost for everybody. It's just certain people. So there are giant gaping holes in that bill. But what he is saying that as president, that's what he was saying. As president, he would just pass a bill where all the health care would be free.
But temporarily.
Temporarily.
Temporary human rights.
Oh, okay.
Remember,
so Medicare for all.
We can have human rights as a treat. That's it, though. Just a treat.
So he likes Medicare for all, but only if it has an expiration date.
But still, okay. that points to this kind of a fundamental flaw in Joe Biden's position against Medicare for all. Because what have we been hearing? We can't just snap our fingers. We can't just snap our fingers and change the system like that.
Yeah.
We can't just snap our fingers and get it done. Not only where is the money going to come from, it just is something that's going to take a long phase-in period. But you can,
we're
as
talking
president, you can just snap your fingers
Yeah.
and everything is paid for?
How? Well, hold up. It's paid for through the government. Oh, shit. How you... So you telling me the government could facilitate this?
Just like that.
Damn.
And that's not coming from us.
They're not even going through the private healthcare industry.
That's not even coming from us. That's coming from Joe Biden. If he becomes president, he becomes president, he'd pretty much snap his fingers. So everything is paid for.
So government, private healthcare industry, citizen. And Joe Biden is able to be like, and go right around him.
But only for a quick second.
Only for
a quick second. Okay. That's it, though. That's the only time it's permissible. Any other time, that's that socialism stuff.
Oh.
Any other time, that's ponies.
Ponies and cookies.
Ponies,
rainbows.
Yeah.
Unicorns.
Any other time, it's unicorns. But right now, it's just a regular looking horse.
Yeah, it's just responding to the job. It's just responding in a responsible way. This is what you got to do. To really protect people, this is what you got to do. Shouldn't you do this on the front end? Again, shouldn't you do
when
this
you say
the
front end, it's just regular every day.
Yeah, that's the front end. Again, he was being disingenuous saying that it wouldn't have helped anything. Yes, it would have helped because people would have sought to be tested. If it was, there's blame on this administration because the testing was not widespread.
And it was bungled from the jump.
Right.
They sent the wrong test out.
But Joe Biden, let's say there's a Joe Biden presidency. And let's say he doesn't bungle the testing aspect of this. He's a better president than Donald Trump, right? And he says, you know what? No, we're not going to run away from this. No, we need to get going. Okay, I'm not concerned about the stock market or how that looks upon my presidency and stuff. No. Let's be proactive here. Let's initiate all this widespread testing. Okay? Again, the front end, if it was widespread, people would have gone even before you initiated it, because before it was a significant problem communicated through the media and through this administration for the United States, it was a significant problem in other countries. Of course, day by day you started hearing about certain cases in the United States. Right away, people are feeling like, okay, hold on, it's coming. Maybe I should get tested because I feel something. Maybe I should get tested. So even if the widespread testing wasn't available, still, they could have been able to go there and be like, yo, I need to get tested for this and that. For Joe Biden not to make the connection with single payer and this virus, no, I said, he's not actually making the connection.
Well, there might be reasons why he's not making the connection cognitively, but you're talking about as far as his political view.
Yes,
right, okay.
yes. It's for a certain reason.
More importantly, what has this outbreak resulted in as far as economically, as far as people's jobs go, Will?
Yeah, people are ass out.
There's a lot of people getting let go.
Yeah, people are ass out right now. Don't know where the money's going to be coming from because Congress although they are speaking about it, they have not come to a decision yet. So
a lot of people aren't working.
Uncertain futures.
A lot of people can't come to work. A lot of people, I've read a lot of things about people getting laid off.
Yeah.
That causes me to think about those jobs that people have where healthcare is a benefit of having that job. Healthcare comes as a benefit of having that job. So what happens to those people who have that benefit, whose workplace is suffering because of this, or who have to get laid off because of this? Will they maintain their health care if they don't have a job?
I would think no. I would think no. I don't understand how you could maintain that health care if you don't have the job, because the job is what's enabling you to maintain the health care.
And a lot of jobs require you to work a certain amount of hours to attain those benefits.
Yeah.
And
to be full time.
Yeah. And with a lot of, like, regardless of whether there's a pandemic or not, a lot of corporations, what they do is they intentionally lower the maximum amount of hours people can work, so they don't have to give them health care.
That's correct.
Now they can do it without. They have an excuse now.
Look, we need single payer in this country again. I don't even know why I was talking about widespread testing, because with single payer, there's widespread testing. You're able to go get it. You're able to go ahead and go do it. There's no cost to you. You don't need a bill.
As long as the tests are available.
Yeah.
As long as the healthcare providers have all the equipment they need,
the equipment
like
they need.
Ventilators, masks, because we're going through a mask shortage right now.
That's why they need $100 billion.
I can't remember what country they sent us masks, but we used our own resources to go get them. I think it was either the U.S. Air Force. I could be wrong. I think they just brought some masks from Italy or some other country. But yeah, that might be an issue, but that just has to do with preparedness. So as long as people...
But see, being prepared, single payer is one of those provisions to help you be prepared about this. Why have to deal with that aspect of it when you're in the middle of a crisis, in the middle of an emergency situation? Like, you can talk about the testing and making sure the testing is available for everybody. You can talk about that, making sure that these hospitals and facilities have what they need to actually facilitate these tests. Cool. But why in the same time are we talking about how are we going to pay for people to get treated, to get these tests? Why are we talking about that right now?
Because our healthcare system sucks. Because people worried about having to front that bill.
This is not a time when we should be worrying about that whatsoever. This is not a time where people should be thinking, well, is it going to be covered or not? Because we have heard a lot of different things. We have heard from, who was it that said that? No. Yeah, remember that clip? That clip from Representative Katie Porter that we showed last week.
The CDC?
Yeah, and she was talking to CDC these gentlemen, and then eventually he said, yes, it would be covered. But then after that, I believe it was healthcare providers were saying that, okay, well, yeah, maybe the test would be covered, but the treatment, I don't know about that.
But I don't even like the rhetoric that was coming from Nancy Pelosi when she was talking about the vaccine, a potential vaccine, and when it was going to be available to the larger public. And she says it needs to be affordable. She used the A word, and I was like, oh, yeah, vaccine?
So that means that...
Vaccine for all who want it.
Yeah, well, so that means that we need to make sure that pharmaceutical companies are able to make a profit off of this.
A vaccine for all who can afford it.
It needs to be affordable, but come on, this is America. They have to make a profit on this. I got you. Maybe one other clip. So in this one, this was towards the end, And both candidates were asked about areas where they were not performing very well. With Joe Biden, it was with Latin voters, and with Bernie Sanders, it was black voters. So they were asked about those failures, and this is how they responded.
Senator Sanders has won more of the Hispanic vote than you in several key states so far. In fact, he doubled your support in California among Hispanics. He almost tripled it in Nevada. So why is your message not resonating with Hispanic voters?
Well, look, my message is resonating across the board. Every single state we've been in, there's been a significant turnout. In Virginia, turnout was up 70%. They voted for me. He didn't bring them out. I brought them out. And number two, look what's happened in Mississippi. Look what's happened in North Carolina. Look what's happened in Washington State. Look what's happened across the board. Why is it that I'm winning all those places? What's the reason? What's the reason? The reason is because they know I am a Democrat with a capital D who in fact believes that our base is the base of the Democratic Party, which are hardworking men and women who in fact are high school educated, African Americans and minorities, including Hispanics, but all minorities, suburban women, people who in fact have a sense of our place in the world. That's why I am winning, not just winning, but overwhelmingly winning, not even close in these places.
Senator,
you didn't.
Senator Sanders, let me just follow up with you about an issue that you're having. For the second consecutive presidential election, you're struggling to gain wide support from African Americans. Why is your message not resonating with African American voters?
Here is what I believe is happening, and this is an important point, and why I decided to run for president. I think it's imperative that we defeat Trump. I think our campaign of a biracial, bigenerational, multi-generational grassroots movement is the way to do it. Now, we have won some states. Joe has won more states than I have. But here's what we are winning. We are winning the ideological struggle, even in states like Mississippi, where Joe won a major victory. Turns out that a pretty good majority of the folks there believe in Medicare for all. And that's true in almost every state in this country. And the other issue that we don't talk enough about is we are winning the generational struggle. Depending on the state, we're winning people 50 years of age or younger, big time people 30 years of age and younger. I frankly have my doubts. Look, if I lose this thing, Joe wins. Joe, I will be there for you. But I have my doubts about how you win a general election against Trump, who will be a very, very tough opponent, unless you have energy, excitement, the largest voter turnout in history. And to do that, you are going to have to bring young people who are not great voters, they don't vote in the kinds of numbers they should, into the political process. You're going to have to bring Latinos, who are great people, who have the agenda that we need, but also don't vote in the numbers that we need. I have my doubts that Vice President Biden's campaign can generate that energy and excitement and that voter turnout.
Bernie's answer was better than Biden's, but I didn't really like either of them. Mm-hmm. I don't think either of them actually dealt with the question head on. I think it would have been more risky for Bernie Sanders to actually deal with that question honestly than Joe Biden. Because Joe Biden has to answer that question and call call Obama into question at the same time. He has to reconsider the policies that him and Obama supported during their time at the White House. Because what was Obama called? The deporter-in-chief. Mm-hmm. I don't think he wanted to address that. That was brought up by Castro, right? That was brought up by Castro during one of the debates. Yeah. And he didn't want to deal with it. I still think it would have been easier for Biden to deal with that question. The question was specifically about Latinx people, specifically, and based on the exit polls, it did look as if just Bernie Sanders cleaned up with that. And there's a reason for that. So Biden didn't deal with that question head on. He kind of alluded to the black support he had, the other support he had.
That was all. That's all.
That's fine. Yeah. That's fine. He can do that. Mm-hmm. But he didn't deal with the question head on. He said, okay, why are you lacking support from this base? Like specifically talk about this base. I think it's an important question because if Biden does end up becoming the nominee, which it looks like he will, then are those people going to come out for him? So I think that's an important question. Now, I don't like how Bernie answered because I don't think he dealt with it head on. I think it would have, if he actually dealt with it head on, it would have been a part of a larger conversation about the media and about how people are
right.
About how people are more. I guess they have allegiance to the Democratic Party and what they're comfortable with and what they're used to, and I think that it would have been it's not as safe for Bernie to answer that question. Yeah, again, I don't like how he answered it, but I think he should have dealt with that right there. He should have dealt with the complexities of specifically the black voter base, which we talked a little bit about, and how they just have a certain comfort level with certain figures, regardless of the positions those certain figures have. And Biden is one of those figures. All the major concerns that most people have, not just black people, Biden is not a politician that you can believe in that will address those concerns. We know that, we understand that, we follow that, but unfortunately, a lot of older black voters, they don't. And I do think that distinction needs to be made. Especially when you're talking about the makeup of the black supporters.
I don't really have too much to say about what Biden said. I mean, I guess, I don't want to say I don't have anything to say about it, but I guess I'm going to focus more on what Bernie did not say. Given what Joe Biden did say. So we know those stats and figures about how Biden is struggling with people of the Latinx community and has been I believe, in every state. And he goes to his support for black people, from black people and how he's performing. Why are they supporting me? Why are they supporting me? Because they know I'm a strong Democrat with a capital D.
Capital D.
So this is where I do have condemnation for Bernie Sanders. Because leading up to the debate, there was one thing that I said that Bernie Sanders needed to do. There was one job that Bernie Sanders had, and that was to take the gloves off. This was the time. Actually, it was before this time. Actually, it was before the South Carolina primary, which he had to, unstrap those gloves and throw them in a corner somewhere. And actually get down and dirty about the truth about Joe Biden. Call out his lies. Call out everything about Joe Biden because it's relevant. When I say dirty, I'm talking about dirty in the truth. It's a dirty truth. I'm not talking about personal attacks. I'm talking about the dirty truth about Joe Biden. And Bernie Sanders failed to do that time and time again on Sunday night. Here, you have a case of Joe Biden claiming to be a strong Democrat with a capital D.
What does that mean?
What that mean? Well, it doesn't mean anything to me. But where Bernie Sanders should have went with that one is where we haven't seen any candidate go so far. And that is to October of 2018, in which Joe Biden went to Michigan, the state of Michigan, to campaign for the far-right incumbent from the Republican Party, Representative Fred Upton. He campaigned for him and took a $200,000 fee to do so. This is a man in Fred Upton that, like I said, is far right, not just on one issue, but on every single issue. This is a Trump guy, anti-abortion guy, anti-ACA guy, anti-everything guy. Every liberal or progressive idea, he's on the opposite end of. So even though we know Joe Biden, I would call him like a center-right, right-wing kind of guy, he's even further right than Joe Biden. They're not even close to each other. But Joe Biden still had the ability to go campaign for that guy over the Democrat. I've said before, I don't expect every candidate, every, somewhat of a celebrity type figure to go campaign for every single Democrat across the country. If you want to stay out of it, cool. But to campaign for the Republican, the far right Republican in that race, that's not a strong Democrat with a capital D. Bernie Sanders' failure to state that, given the opportunity, Joe Biden has given him so many of these, talking about how he's a progressive, strong Democrat, capital D. He's giving you so many opportunities, but Bernie Sanders fails time and time again to go where it is necessary. Would it have made a difference? We cannot be sure. We know how people are. Pointing out the lies that Joe Biden makes, it doesn't seem to make any difference. It just doesn't seem to make any difference. But if you are going to, if you're at least trying to do something in this campaign, if you're Bernie Sanders, you're coming from behind now. Going into Tuesday, going into these 4 states, we know it ended up being 3. But look, you're on your heels. You're about to be knocked out. The one thing that you haven't tried yet, that you didn't even try in 2016, was taking off the gloves, throwing him in a corner, and actually going hard on the truth about your challenger. And he failed to do it yet again. So this is we that are in the progressive movement, we want some change. We want significant change. And we do believe in Bernie Sanders. And I would have much preferred Bernie Sanders, of course, to be the Democratic nominee. It doesn't look like it's going to get to that point. So I think that he would have advocated for it had he been the nominee, had he been the president of the United States. I do have that confidence that he would have actually tried to get these things done. But if we have that confidence that he's going to do it there, why isn't he doing it now and using every tool that he has? It's a significant failure on Bernie Sanders to not use the tools that he has to win this race.
I think it is interesting to be bombarded with a certain type of narrative when it comes to Bernie Sanders, because we're told that he is, rude. He shakes his fist all the time. Mm-hmm. He encourages a online Bernie brigade to harass people. So there's this narrative about Bernie Sanders that presents him in a very sinister way. We see this especially from media figures, right? So he's cast in a way that makes him a villain. Uh-huh. But the reality is he's actually too soft. He's way too soft. Which is mind-boggling, considering, how they've casted him.
Yeah.
He's actually too soft, and for the most part, if you talk to, Bernie supporters, if you follow Bernie supporters, you interact with Bernie supporters online, they have the same complaint. So it's just weird interacting with Bernie supporters who have the exact same complaint that Will does, right? It's like, hey, he doesn't go hard enough. He doesn't go as hard as he should. He doesn't attack when he should. And that's not just the case with Biden. That's the case with all the Democratic candidates this year and the last go round with Hillary Clinton. But what we hear is he's too mean. That junk blows my mind. I'm like, wow, imagine if he did. Imagine if he did do what he was supposed to do. Imagine if he did hit them in the right areas at the right time. Imagine that. He goes soft and they still cast him as some sort of just demon. He's just so dirty.
Drago.
Yeah. They just cast
Rocky.
Yeah, they just cast him as
doing too much.
Yeah, they just cast him as this evil villain who is just tearing down Democrats that have integrity or whatever. So, but the reality is he doesn't do what's necessary to actually get people to question the integrity of people like Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton. And he failed. And I think he is. We don't deserve him. I don't think this world deserves him. I don't think America deserves him because he is not a politician. And I think that's what actually hurts him. Going up against individuals who are he is a career politician, technically, but he's not a careerist. He is not in it to make money. He's not. So I think like the political instincts that are required to elevate yourself in this type of system, in this type of political system, Bernie just doesn't have that. It's just not in him to be that way. He doesn't like. He doesn't hit those.
Yeah, he doesn't go for the gusto.
He doesn't go for the gut when he should, because again, he is not.
It doesn't seem like he's wired that way.
Yeah, again, and I think that's where his campaign fails, because he's not wired to be a sinister actor in all this.
And no, it's
he's not wired.
It's not
to be
sinister though. You don't say it's sinister. He wouldn't be. It would just be calling out the truth in a very aggressive way.
True. I don't think that may be a wrong word to use.
Yeah.
Because sinister implies that it's like not in good faith.
Right.
But there is a type of mentality that is like kind of like I'm gonna get at this. I don't want to be friends with any of these people.
Exactly.
It's like no holds barred. I don't want to be friends with any of these people. This is a battle, and I'm gonna win this thing.
Right. And he doesn't seem like he has that gear.
Again, and he is constantly cast as this figure that doesn't want to unify, but yet he is the one out of all the candidates that does what when it comes to how he describes his relationship with all these people that have different politics. He says, oh, my friend, we're friends. He always does that.
Coming from a place of love, or I know you're trying to do the right thing. That's what he says about Joe Biden.
But he's casted in the opposite way. It's just like, it boggles my mind.
Look, this is not, us turn on Bernie Sanders or anything. Like I said, I believe that Bernie Sanders is actually trying to do things and has been trying to do that for many years, many decades. What I'm saying is that this is his second go of it. This is his second run for president. We had the same criticism of him in 2016, saying that, man, I mean, there were certain gaps, there were certain holes in your debating style and just your attack on Hillary Clinton, the Democratic establishment, just on media even. So there were certain holes. And going forward into 2020, the same kind of things we're seeing now that we saw in 2016 in terms of the candidate and the media. If you weren't, if you didn't get what fight you were in based on your earlier run, then this is a failure. And what I'm saying is that the attack on Bernie Sanders is always disingenuous. The question about Fidel Castro came up in this debate as well. And the response to that from Biden is kind of saying things like, well, Bernie Sanders, he said these glowing things about these dictators and these authoritarians, and you don't do that. And, Bernie Sanders like, hey, I'm just pointing out facts. Joe, can you deny that this happened? Did China get more people out of poverty and blah, blah? And he's like, oh, well, no. You don't try to say good things about authoritarian stuff like that. Look, the establishment, Joe Biden, the media, we know what their narrative is. They're going to be, their strategy is to completely eviscerate the progressive candidate. That's what their agenda is. They don't play fair. They don't play fair whatsoever. So if you're the progressive in that race and you're calling for truth and justice, you're advocating for people, you have to understand the fight that you are in, and you can't fight with the gloves on. You can't do that because they're not playing fair. So you can't hold tools in your belt. You can't leave all these tools laying around and not use them. They're all over the place, but you don't want to say anything because you said, well, Joe's a friend. You can't do that if you're actually trying to create a pathway to justice in this country. You can't do that. So yes, that is a significant criticism that I have of Bernie Sanders, and it's not going away just because I like him, because I'm in it for the same fight, whatever. If we see somebody that is up here, all right, because we're not in the same place that Bernie Sanders is. He is the most, he is the leading voice for the progressive movement and has been for a number of years. We want that leader to fight with every tool because we know the fight we're up against. If that leader doesn't do it, what? You can't just say, well, he's a good guy. He doesn't fight like that. No, you can't do that.
And as much as I like AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I say her whole name. One of, I guess a protege, you would call her, of Bernie Sanders.
You could say that.
You could say she's a protege. I see some of the same tendencies in her too.
Yeah.
But if people don't like this manifestation of what is considered revolutionary or revolution in Bernie Sanders, a revolutionary, if they don't like this manifestation, right, and they think he is too much, and he is actually fairly soft, like you so eloquently laid out, imagine how they will perceive an actual, like, fiery revolutionary who takes no prisoners, who actually is not afraid to go about calling out the establishment the way that they should. Imagine how people will respond to that. If they're responding to Bernie Sanders, who has left on the table so much, so many strategies of attack, that he left on the table. If they're reacting like this to him, imagine how they react to somebody who is like real strong. If you think these Bernie bros are bad now, wait till you see the manifestation of Bernie bros if Trump wins a second term. Wins a second term.
Yeah.
And in the 2024 election. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse for y'all centrists, I promise. If you think Bernie bros are bad now.
Look, we again, you have to know the fight that you're in. And basically that's all I'm saying. If everything was fair, Bernie Sanders' way would work. If everything was fair and the media was actually covering things the way they should be covered and informing viewers about everything that needs to be discussed, I think Bernie Sanders wins hands down. It wouldn't be a contest. But that's not the reality. We're not in a fair fight whatsoever. The media is going to con their way to a centrist nominee. Every single time they're going to do it. That's the reality that we're living in. And it seems like that's what's going forward. That's our reality. That's our future. So as the progressive, as the person that wants to move us in the actual right direction to advocate for people, you can't lay off. That's what I'm saying. You can't lay off. This isn't me going after Bernie Sanders or being in opposition to Bernie Sanders or being in opposition to AOC. But this is criticizing them. Yes, because as critical thinkers, as people who want to hold other people accountable, you hold people accountable that are even on your side as well. It's not us opposing them. It's just saying this is what we need. If we want to move forward, we have to realize some things about our movement and like the way that we handle ourselves going forward. The candidate that we have that is challenging the centrist movement, the long time centrist movement. The candidate that does that has to go at them fiercely, actually fiercely, not the Bernie bro fiercely, which is, like you said, soft and, not actually being that aggressive. That's the fight that we're in. Bernie Sanders talks about a revolution. Okay. We're not talking about fighting in the streets, but a revolution is a revolution, right? A revolution is a significant change from the norm. You can't get to the revolution without using all the tools that are here for you to use.
How did CNN juxtapose that question about revolution? I can't remember. It said revolution versus getting things done.
Yeah.
Is that what it said?
Something like that.
Yeah, and they asked that question. It's like, I think they posed the question to Biden first, and it was like, what do we need? Do we need revolution or do we need to get things done? And he actually had the question on the lower chyron, like how they always do, on the lower third. And I was just like, man, this is some propaganda right here. Like, they're trying to get people to like engage in a false choice.
Yeah.
Like they're associating Joe Biden with getting things done.
Yeah.
And they're saying revolution doesn't get things done, which is
they're saying what Pete Buttigieg says, but not using his language, burning it all down.
Burning it all down.
And that is not what Bernie Sanders says
these
whatsoever.
politicians want to fundamentally change how we get things done, while at the same time just kind of pissing on the idea of revolution.
Yep.
I don't see how you actually get things done without implementing something radical, especially with how advanced and how far this system has taken this country already. So how do you change? How do you involve yourselves in structural change, big structural change, without some sort of revolutionary mindset? That's another thing that I hated. Like, people loved it, especially Warren supporters, throwing out that terminology, big structural change. Well, what would that involve?
Yep.
Like, what structure are they trying to change? And how do you change that structure without introducing something revolutionary to it? That's what I just hated. Like, somehow you're going to shit on Bernie, right? Mm-hmm. Somehow you're going to shit on Bernie, but these other candidates, it's like Warren, mm-hmm. who has a plan for everything.
A better plan
More
for
everything. Though that made sense.
Mm-hmm. That's what, look, this is what I'm saying. The fight isn't fair. That's all I'm saying. And now is the opportune time to say that, because it looks like Bernie's plan it was not successful. I actually don't expect Bernie Sanders to be in the race come April 4th. I don't expect that to happen. April 4th is the next challenge. I can't remember all the states that are going to be voting that day. Possibly. We don't know what the situation is going to be like around, the coronavirus, but that's the next date. Bernie Sanders definitely has some time to make his decision. But at this point, I don't know if he can. I think it made I definitely think it made sense to stay in the race after the second, Super Tuesday, mini Super Tuesday. I think that made a lot of sense.
Yeah, especially with some of those other states not being certified yet.
Yeah.
And so the delegate count was the gap between him and Bernie, between Biden and Bernie, wasn't as wide.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't
as wide as it was when
right.
he ran against Hillary at the same time,
so
in the primary. So
it made somewhat sense. Yeah,
and he wasn't at that time. He wasn't even halfway.
True.
He wasn't even halfway to what 19 was it 19 what 19
what last time?
No, like now.
This time, yeah, 1991.
1991.
Yeah.
Like, Biden wasn't halfway there.
Right.
So there was still like 54% of the delegates still up for grabs. So him dropping out before Tuesday
last week,
it wouldn't have made sense.
No. And there was another debate scheduled. And look, we said what needed to happen. I mean, this was an opportunity to really do something different. I will agree that he was more aggressive than what we had seen before. I don't know if that was a product of him trying to do that or just a product of him having more time to speak. But there were certain things that he left on the table that needed to be addressed. If you're talking, I mean, I shared with you my disgust about how Joe Biden lies to black people about black issues. His involvement in the civil rights movement, which was zero, nil, nothing. But he lies to people to make them feel like he was actually in on the black struggle when he wasn't. He was actually talking to segregationists about opposing integration. So to know that, Bernie Sanders and his team has to know that. So if Biden is talking about all the support that he has from black people, why are you as a candidate not saying, because you lied to him, Joe? Because you're lying to him, Joe. Why don't you tell him about how inactive you were during the civil rights movement? Is that a personal attack, or are we talking about the truth? Is that something that voters need to know? Is that something that voters need to hear? If the candidate isn't telling you the truth about himself, is that something that we might need to hear from the other candidates that are challenging him? As a progressive, again, the fight is never going to be fair. So if you leave stuff on the table, I just don't see how you can say that I fought the hardest that I can. I like Bernie Sanders for what he is. I know that he's trying to do the right thing, but we have to be truthful about what the fight is and what it's going to take to actually overcome it.
So maybe he's just not there when it comes to what is necessary for his type of politics to move forward. Maybe he's just not there yet as a person. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe something will come out, after all the dust settles, because we don't know the internal workings of his campaign, and whether they've tried to address these things to Bernie Sanders to try to get him to highlight some of these issues. So I don't know. We don't know. Like, we don't know what his team told him. We don't know. I just can't see those individuals that were being paid to advise Bernie Sanders and keep him abreast on certain issues, offer certain talking points, offer a strategy when he gets into a debate with Joe Biden. I don't know. We don't know what those meetings entailed. So I just don't see those people not being informed about those same issues that you brought up and not being able to advise Bernie Sanders on those issues and use those as lines of attack. Those people are way more qualified than we are, so there's no way they don't know those things. So I don't see them not bringing it up to Bernie Sanders. Maybe Bernie Sanders just disagrees with them.
And look,
about how to go about engaging with other Democratic candidates. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case.
I can't say that it would have worked too. I want to make that clear. Bernie Sanders using every tool, not leaving anything on the table. I cannot say for sure that it would have worked and he would have beaten Joe Biden. I can't say that for sure whatsoever. Would never say that. But at least you don't have something to point to that you left on the table. Again, the fight is unfair. We understand that. If you don't have every tool available, not every tool. If you don't use every tool that is available, then you're selling yourself and this movement short. You're not doing everything that you can to actually win. If you do it and it ultimately is unsuccessful, then we look somewhere else. Then we're like, well, damn, look, the media is playing unfair. We gotta somehow, because we know the media is facilitating this mindset of people. How can we change this? I think everybody knows that's where we have to go. The media is in virtually every single household through some means, cellular, through cable news, whatever. So we know that's the medium that we do have to attack. We got to do something on that end. But if you aren't telling the whole truth when you are given the opportunity, you can at least rectify that easily. Easily you can rectify that. How many more people are you going to get to support you because of the argument that you will make based on the truth? It's hard to quantify.
The argument that he's going to make in regard to selling himself, that's one thing. The argument he makes in kind of dissuading people from going to another candidate is another thing. And he tends to focus on offering arguments to persuade people to vote for him.
Right.
Or rather than going on the offense and kind of illustrating why this candidate is not good for the people. He kind of hits on it every now and then,
yes.
But it just seems to always come when he's playing defense.
Right.
So it just never seems like
you can do both.
You can do both. It doesn't ever seem like he initiates those attacks. They sure as hell initiate those attacks on him.
You know what the fight is. You know it's unfair. That's what I'm saying. If you didn't learn it in 2016, if we didn't learn that in 2016 and don't know it now, you have got to change some things going forward. And I hope people know that. I hope people know that, like, you can be as good as what Bernie Sanders and his history has been, advocating for regular people, working people, poor people. He seemed like the right candidate to get all the support from a majority of people. He seemed like the right candidate to get it done, right? If you're going based on logic and reasoning, he would be the candidate everybody would support. But it didn't happen. So you have to address that. That is the reality, that it did not happen. So why didn't it happen? Again, we can talk about the media, but there's no immediate response to that. We can't just be like, okay, Chris Cuomo, be fair, go. CNN, be fair. MSNBC, everybody at MSNBC, be fair, starting now. There's no immediate fix, but you can change the way that you campaign. You can change your rhetoric. You can use every tool that's available. His failure to talk about Joe Biden campaigning for a far-right Republican
What's the best
in a Democratic primary race?
Not only that, I mean, it goes. The history of catering towards conservative, I guess, notions of conservatism goes way beyond that. Like, it's throughout his history. So it's not just him campaigning, doing a stump speech for a Republican. Mm-hmm. It's throughout his entire career. He's kind of showed favor to, not kind of, he has shown favor to Republicans. And that's why that's how he sold himself throughout his career as the most conservative Democrats. Press releases pointed to his conservatism as a strong point. So he's always been closely related to Republicans ideologically. What do you see? What do you see happening with the progressive movement if, let's say, Joe Biden miraculously wins and people are just so upset with Trump, and Trump doesn't come out of this, coronavirus unscathed, and Biden somehow wins? Where do you see the progressive movement going if that scenario takes place? And where do you see the progressive movement going? Let's say Trump wins a second term.
Those are fair questions.
Well, maybe I should rephrase that. I don't think the progressive movement is going anywhere. I still think it's going to be strong. What I should say is, what are the chances of a progressive being fielded as a presidential candidate and being successful, and whether, depending on who is president is in 2024, and depending on that, will it make the progressive movement more attractive? Will it make it stronger?
These are bad options.
I know.
I mean, these are bad options. These are really bad options.
This is America, Will, where we only have bad options.
These are really, because
that's the reality we're in.
If Biden wins in 2024, there's not going to be a progressive challenge. So you'll still have to wait until possibly 2028 to even try that, right? And so then if okay,
see, you're getting there. See, that's why I asked the question.
If Trump wins, he'll realistically he will push us back further. So in 2024.
They will replay the same bullshit.
Yeah, I mean,
they will replay the same bullshit. Number one, they'll blame Bernie for Trump getting another term, and they will try to run another centrist because Trump most likely would make it worse. Yes. So going back to normal is going to be the new and improved.
Exactly.
That's the new and improved campaign slogan. Progress. That's going to be new.
Return to the old. That's progress.
That's progress. If Biden wins, he's most likely going to get a second term.
Most likely.
And it's going to be a worse outcome. It's going to be worse consequences. It's going to be somebody worse than Trump. It's going to be an actual fascist. Someone who is like more cerebral, someone who is more intelligent.
Maybe more open racist?
No.
Maybe?
No.
You don't think so?
I don't know. I don't think it's going to be as open. But even
they could they could maybe put that back.
I think if Biden wins in this year, he'll get 2 terms just like Obama did, and I think it'll pave the way for an actual fascist to come in. I mean, look what Obama did. Look what happened after 8 years of Obama. He was supposed to be that hope and change. He ran as a progressive. He was supposed to switch things up, and nothing really fundamentally changed. Like, he got a lot of votes he shouldn't have gotten in 2008 because he had that charisma.
Yeah.
People believed in him. He actually did what Bernie should be doing now. Damn, I just realized that. The way he was going after Hillary, Obama was hitting Hillary with so many combos. Like, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Like, if you look at Obama's old speeches,
Yeah.
not just when he was on stage by himself and talking about Hillary, he would point out Hillary's political positions that undercut her political rhetoric. He would point out why her politics is flawed and why it's not good for the American people. And he would use specific circumstances as a reference. And he did it in a way that resonated with people. He had people frowning, laughing. If you watch his old speeches, when he's just pacing on stage, talking about Hillary Clinton, he had people in both a serious mode and laughing.
That's true.
Because they were laughing at her.
Yeah.
And then when Obama got on stage with her, it was the same thing. It was like calling her out, being more aggressive, being active.
If she had campaigned for a far right Republican, do you think Obama would have left that in the belt? You think he wouldn't have picked that up? You don't think he would have used that?
Picked it up. Picked it up. He would have picked it up with both hands.
Yeah.
Climbed up on a ladder to about a building that's about 20 feet high.
20 feet.
20 feet high. And just like jumped down and hit her over the head with it.
Smashed her.
Smashed her with it. You know he would have done that.
That's a significant tool, man.
So
especially when somebody engages in the rhetoric of being such a long, a lifelong Democrat, a strong Democrat, a proud Democrat, capital D Democrat.
D.
If that's if that's what you are in your campaign, how do you undercut that? Because Bernie, again, you know, we know that Bernie Sanders is an independent, so they always frame him as not a Democrat, right? But Bernie Sanders doesn't have a history of campaigning for far-right Republicans. If you know that is their attack on you, and you know something about your candidate that talks about how much of a strong Democrat he is with a capital D, and he has the nerve to say that on stage, and you don't come back with this information about Fred Upton.
Like I said, if Bernie would have approached not only 2016 election, but this election the same way Obama approached his, who knows?
Who knows? You can't say.
We don't know.
You can't say,
but I wish he would have done that.
I wish he would have too.
But like I said, I think if we have 8 years of Biden, who, my God, like, it only could get worse. If you're talking about neoliberalism, it only could get worse under Biden.
Yeah,
so if it gets worse under Biden, man, if people were disillusioned with a Trump presidency, I'm telling you, I fear that there's going to be somebody worse than Trump that's actually kind of like a Bloomberg. That will lead the way to a Bloomberg. We almost got Bloomberg this time. You see what I'm saying? So why not? I think it's just going to get worse. With at least if Trump becomes at least Trump gets reelected, there's going to be I think there's going to be a lot of Democrats that don't want to go through that again. Well, at least this time they can. This time in 2020, I think it's a little bit easier to run on get Trump out because Trump just got in. But if Trump stays in, how are you going to run with that again? I think they might try, but I think there are going to be too many people that, lose trust in the Democratic Party. Just enough, maybe not too many. There might be just enough to create like a political realignment. I don't know whether that's going to be the case or not, but I just don't see that. I don't see it working again. If Trump gets reelected, I don't see in 2024 them being able to use that same narrative. We got to get Trump out. I was like, well,
they can't do that.
They can't do that because Trump is going to be gone.
So what will be the campaign slogan?
That's what I'm saying. Like, what will be the campaign slogan? Like, because Trump will have fulfilled his term, his second term, and that's it. So you really can't use the fear of Trump again. You can't use the fear of Trump again. You can just use, well, this is what Trump did and we got to fix it maybe.
What I know is that, again, if Biden is the nominee, which it does look like he is going to be, there's no doubt in that he is a significantly weaker candidate than Hillary Clinton.
Weaker and less focused.
Yeah, that's a nice way of saying it, less focused. The DNC, the Democratic Party, they're and not just them, of course, regular people too. It's like they're pumping themselves up and trying to make it a reality that Joe Biden is something that he is not. I don't think that's going to work when it actually comes down to voting. I just have my doubts because, again, we still have to go through the process of Trump campaigning against Joe Biden. We still have to go through that. And even though Bernie Sanders didn't want to take off the gloves, Donald Trump lives without the gloves on. He doesn't fight with two fists. Like he brings other fists in there as well. Like fists you ain't never even seen before. Like
no.
He invents fists.
No. Like Trump, he's unconventional.
Yeah.
He's like,
yeah. What am I saying? He's not fighting just with fists.
Yeah, he's
not just with fists.
He's unconventional.
Yeah. Is Joe Biden going to be able to survive all of that, and then come out with a win in November? Is he going to? Is that going to? It doesn't seem like a reality to me.
Because there has to be
It doesn't seem likely.
Because the Democrats have to feel somebody that gets people excited enough to vote. And all Trump really has to do is depress the vote.
Yeah, that's all he has to do.
That's really all he has to do is depress the vote.
Mm-hmm.
Not do anything extravagant. He just has to convince people that Biden is not exciting enough.
Yeah.
Because Hillary Clinton did that. Hillary Clinton did that. She didn't convince enough people to get up and vote for her. So is Biden going to change that? Maybe that could be that might be the case, considering that we've had 3.5 years of Trump. So I don't know. Maybe people are considering that because, voter turnout has been up. But will it be up enough during the general election to get Trump out? Because Trump has a machine behind him, and if he comes out of this coronavirus
looking good,
that's going to change things.
Because I was just about to say coronavirus because. It's still going to be a reality in November. I mean, it's still going to be being talked about in November.
You know what Trump is going to say? See, the DNC and Joe Biden's campaign already gave Donald Trump an out. Even though he bungled this from the start, and there's a lot of blame to be, passed his way. Based on how the DNC handled Tuesday's primary and the advice Joe Biden issued and members of his campaign, they can be like, well, if the DNC, canceled these elections, maybe it wouldn't have spread. They're opening the door for Trump to have an excuse.
Yeah. Because at the same time Trump is saying don't gather in more than groups of 10, the DNC is like, go vote. Go vote. It's okay. Trump is looking more sane than you are, more responsible than you are. You don't think that's going to come back?
Oh, no. It's definitely going to come back. And it's going to come back that way, and it might come back this way, too. If there's some progress being made, right? If there's some, significant progress in regard to a vaccine, the numbers not only start leveling out, they, start going down. What if that happens in this October, November? Mm-hmm. And they've already passed an economic relief bill? You know what Trump is going to say? Don't you want to keep me in office?
To see this through?
To see this through.
Yeah. That's what Trump. I mean, well, no, that's what Bush did. He used the Iraq War, even though people were against it. He used the idea that, like, I started it.
I got to get it out. Even though it was wrong, I was in the wrong.
Yep.
I lied,
Yep.
but I got to get us out of this lie.
Yep.
So he was able to stay in the White House due to a bad thing. He essentially campaigned on a bad thing.
Yeah. Right and a wrong.
Right and a wrong.
I'm the only one that can get us out of this.
But see, with Trump, it wouldn't be a wrong.
It wasn't even his fault.
It would, but
I mean,
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But it's not even a wrong.
right.
It wouldn't be a wrong, so it wouldn't even be the same. It would be better. It would be a better situation.
All this spells bad news for Biden. Again, it spells bad news for Biden. Like I said, I just see him as a worse candidate. Trump has more in the arsenal to attack him. I don't know, man. But like I said earlier, these are bad options. These are really, really bad options. I don't think third party is a significant option in 2020.
But I tell you what though, like, it's not an option. I don't even think Bernie sees it as an option. No. He already said he was going to campaign for the nominee.
Of course.
But I would say though, how many votes did Jill Stein get? Like
a million or so.
Over a million, 1.1, 1.7. Bernie probably would get like 20 million.
If he did,
yeah. I think if Bernie ran third party, he would definitely get 20 million. But then, like, they would definitely blame him. Then it would be then they would definitely.
And they'd actually have something to like, yo, like you're never gonna live this down.
Yeah, you're never gonna live that down. But nah, I don't. Nah, it's dirt.
Actually, what is because if nobody gets to 270. Then it goes to the House of Representatives, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is controlled by the Democratic Party. I mean, they wouldn't give it to Bernie, no doubt.
Oh, hell no.
But then that would I guess, enable them to give it to Joe.
Okay.
You know?
All right, so
they might be like, yeah, good job, Bernie. Good job.
So the question is not just like how excited are people to vote for Joe Biden, which is up in the air. But we have a different situation where we have a very polarizing president. So can Trump maintain the support? That's all. I think that's all he has to do.
Yeah.
If he just maintains the support.
Because the Democratic Party has to cut into the...
That ain't happening.
Yeah.
He ain't cutting in. Well, also, okay.
Because they have to cut... Well, they have to get those Midwest states.
Well,
Joe Biden has to.
Okay. I don't think there's going to be any cutting in. Because the people who are dissatisfied with Trump ain't going to vote Democrat. They'll vote for... I don't even think there'll be a third-party challenger. Usually there's not a third-party challenger when they're, like, until, like, somebody's second term. But if there just happens to be a third-party challenger, I think they would rather go for a third party than go for a Democrat. Because you see how many people voted for Gary Johnson?
That's true.
It's like, what, 4 million?
Yeah, he got significantly more than Jill Stein.
3.5, 4 million. So, yeah, a lot of people voted for Gary Johnson.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think they would, if there's a third-party candidate, they would more likely go to a third party than just go to a Democrat. So I don't think there's a lot of cutting in. There's no cutting in. There's just adding. There might be some independent voters there they want to attract. I think that's the only available base.
To cut into
the realistic
Trump's lead,
base, and I don't.
Or to
independents.
To cut into the support that Trump has, you would have to give people an option that is very unlike Trump. I mean, you couldn't give them something
like blue Trump.
Yeah, that's not enough.
Yeah, blue Trump is not enough.
You have to actually give them another way, and the other way being sold as the better way.
But will they be convinced he's a blue Trump? That's the thing, because he's not being cast that way. He's not even being... See, that's the thing. Like, there's no other side casting him as blue Trump. And centrists and those who support Biden, they don't think he's a blue Trump. They don't think he. So the only people that it matters to would be independents.
Yeah.
Whether they view him as whether they perceive him as a blue Trump.
Look, man, people are stupid. I have no idea. Like this could go either way.
But
this
like
really
you said,
could
he's
go
not cutting into Trump.
No,
he's not cutting into Trump.
I don't think he's giving people enough to switch their support from, even if they believe Trump to be horrible. Like we're seeing, given the coronavirus that we're living in right now, again, if he emerges from this looking like he's acting responsibly and doing right by people, if he comes away with that,
it won't matter what he called the virus. I promise you, it won't matter what people that are close to him.
No, it won't matter.
That won't matter to anybody. I guarantee you.
And this is one of the least things he's done. If this is being categorized as racist, it's one of the least racist things that he's done. Like there's way more outwardly things that he has done that has been bigoted, racist, sexist, homophobic, all of that, xenophobic. This, I don't think people are gonna like get up in arms about this and be really upset about this. I said before, I don't know, if it was last week or what, but he really hasn't been making too many moves, like trying to sell how racist he is recently. Actually, it's been a few months, really. I mean, we haven't even talked about it, how he did something that was so offensive or something like. When's the last time we said that? It's been a minute.
He's been like being dumb.
He's been being dumb, yeah.
Yeah, that's just him.
But I'm talking about racist, bigoted, sexist, like that. Like it used to come, like, pretty often, but he hasn't really been doing that, and that's one thing that voters throughout his presidency, they have been turned off by. Mm-hmm. So if that was the reason why they wouldn't vote for him, it doesn't seem like he's giving them that reason anymore. And again, if he comes out looking good, coronavirus.
And a lot of those people who consider themselves like never Trumpers, those Republicans, he'll get those people back.
Yeah,
he'll get those people back. I just don't trust the Democrats to come out on top. I just don't.
Not with the same type of candidate.
No, but they just in general as a party, they'd like to bungle things.
Yeah, they do. Well, they're bungling this nomination process, of course. I mean, so.
See, the thing is, I at the end of the day, the Democratic apparatus, they're not going to be phased. They're not going to suffer the consequences if Trump becomes reelected. Other people will. Their lives aren't going to change. Their lives aren't going to change. And that's the thing. Their material existence will most likely stay the same or get better.
I mean, look, I've said before about through the different presidents throughout our lifetimes in modern history, not a lot has changed just on a day-to-day basis of regular people. But given the conservative lean for decades on federal courts and in the Supreme Court, if Trump is elected to a second term, I mean, that will have an effect. That will have a substantial effect. I mean, that would be a disaster. And that's not, trying to be
alarmist.
Yeah, that's telling the truth about it.
See, I think the natural fear people have is, the right-wing lean of these judges, and they think it might have some significant consequences in the areas of like abortion, voting rights, and whatnot, or anything like that. But protecting, I guess, Trump's
environment,
or
environment,
or So I think people have legitimate concerns, but who knows? Who knows how those judges will rule? Because we know why Trump appoints judges. Because he doesn't really have an ideology. Because his ideology is him.
Money.
His ideology is money.
Mm-hmm.
So if you donate money, you might have a position. Donate money to his campaign, like Sondland.
Yeah.
That's all he did. Mm-hmm. He wasn't really qualified for that position.
No.
He just donated money to Trump's inauguration fund, and he got a position. A major position.
Either way, we're just speaking about gloom and doom right now. It's either way, it's a bad scenario going forward until at least 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless, we still have the United States as a global hegemonic superpower, regardless of who gets in office.
Yep. Doesn't matter.
Regardless of whether it's Trump or if it's Biden, still be operating with an imperialistic agenda across the globe. And it's going to be the same domestically too. I don't see much changing. So
is Biden going to get us out of the Yemen war?
No. He's just as bad as Trump. He probably would veto. He probably would veto something because he would be like, well, I'll get us out of it. So I got you into it. So I gotta get y'all out. He might do the Bush thing. But I think it's going to be bad either way.
It will.
That's why I think the broader political apparatus doesn't really care who wins. This is why Nancy Pelosi can, I don't even know what to call it. Do this whole performative compassion type thing. Because she has certain words that may give the appearance that she's like compassionate to the needs of the regular folk. But then when she does things like sign Donald Trump's defense budget, she's okay with that. She's okay with extending the Patriot Act. She signed that. She's okay with ICE funding. She signed that. Court appointees, approves a lot of those. ICE.
You said ICE, yeah.
Said ICE? Maybe you gotta think they're just so whack. I said them twice. The trade bill.
Yeah, she approves of that.
But she ripped up his State of the Union speech. That's sending a message. That's sending a real message.
Do you think
that's sending a real message?
Do you think that Tulsi Gabbard will run again for president?
She's young.
She is young.
She's young. She might.
I didn't think that she was going to run this time. I remember us talking before, there was any entry to the. Well, I don't know if it was any entry. Maybe I'm not sure, but it was very early on. It was just a lot of speculations about who could possibly be running this and that. And I did not think Tulsi Gabbard was going to run. I really did not. I communicated that I did not believe she was going to make that announcement.
Because Bernie was running.
Not just that. It was just that even at that point, I understood that her support was limited. I mean, if there was a chance that Bernie Sanders was going to run in 2020, then how in the world would Tulsi Gabbard find a lane?
Yeah, I know. That's why we were trying to figure out what she was doing. And I think my mind went to certain places, probably the same place a lot of people went. Just her being there is going to steer the conversation in a certain direction. And there were certain occasions where she did have moments, and I thought that were significant. Tim Ryan, Kamala Harris.
Yeah. Even Buttigieg.
Yeah, Buttigieg.
At least once.
Yeah, at least once. But that's not enough. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. I don't really think that she added anything significant. A lot of times we'll say, well, it's like this person's voice is necessary, and this person changed the conversation. They need to be on stage because, they need to be some sort of agent of agitation. But with how these debates are formatted, I don't even think that's possible. And then when you look at it in hindsight and you look at where they ended up after they either dropped out or just after the dust settles with the primary, you have to reflect upon what kind of significance they really had by being in the race. And we both saw, many people saw the shift that Andrew Yang made. And they were just like giving him the side eye. So right there, that made me question his existence. I can't have the same position. I was like, oh yeah, because I thought the same thing too. Like, oh, Andrew Yang, I'm going to like him on stage. I'm going to definitely like him on stage. And there were certain times where he brought attention to certain things. And Tulsi Gabbard too. But there were too many pivots for me to look at those situations and think they were being genuine now. You see what I'm saying? So how significant was their inclusion in this race? Specifically talking about Andrew Yang, specifically talking about Tulsi Gabbard.
Well, Yang had more of a contribution.
Actually, you know who had more? I think more for a longer period of time and didn't kind of swerve until the last minute? Tom Steyer.
Yeah, that's true.
He's
been strangely quiet, too.
He's been strangely quiet.
Ever since.
He was, you know, aside from that last little shift at the end, he really didn't shift in his positions. All he did was shift into like a couple of attack ads with Bernie Sanders.
True.
That's about it. But he never shifted his position. And he was on stage always being Bernie Sanders' hype man. All the other candidates pretty much never did that. I mean, there were occasions where they would say, oh, Bernie's right. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, Tulsi Gabbard wasn't like, Bernie's right. No, Elizabeth Warren wasn't like, oh, Bernie's right on this and that. None of those candidates were. They all considered themselves progressive. And half of them were on stage when, you know, Bernie Sanders introduced that bill. So I don't know what my takeaway is from Tulsi Gabbard specifically, just running this time. I don't know what she accomplished. I really don't know what she accomplished. And now she drops out and endorses Biden. If she would have dropped out,
she's hoping for a position.
That's what it seems like.
If Biden becomes president, maybe she's hoping for a position. I don't know. But yeah, I don't think it had a meaningful effect. All right, let's look at some, well, there's some super chats. Let's get to some super chats. Hookup 79. That was earlier on. Epic fail. I don't know exactly what that was about. Maybe, yeah, we were talking about the coronavirus about that time. Maybe the DNC and the voting, maybe that could have been it. Appreciate that, though. Artificial Morphous Man, if Biden, Bernie, and or Trump become sick, Tulsi was our last chance. Otherwise, Pence. That's one way of looking at it. Environmental Coffee House, great show and analysis. Appreciate that. Gear Randon, thank you very much, Gear. Lita Gray, appreciate you guys so much. Thank you, Lita Gray. I don't know if I've seen that name before.
Yeah, I've never seen that name before. That's the first time I've seen that name.
Appreciate that. And then Hookup 79, once again, that was recently. How do you think your people will react to closing down cities or whole regions in order to quarantine? Look, like we said, it's not the same thing, of course, but there have been some, I guess, some closure. Well, they've been closing down businesses. There's been curfews that have been implemented.
11 o'clock here.
11 o'clock here. Closing down in terms of, like, I guess, like light military law or something like that.
Yeah, I think when I was reading
it'll be something.
The newspaper, the state newspaper, I think like the mayor and some other official were saying that ain't nobody gonna get stopped. Most people are not gonna get stopped if they're just like driving.
Oh no, well, hold on. What I saw was that they weren't gonna be charged.
Well, yes,
they might be stopped.
But no, like I'm talking about like specifically in a car. You're not gonna get stopped in a car.
I saw something different.
Well, I saw they are discouraging like people from being like stopped. I saw the word stopped. I think it depends on how it goes. Yeah. It's one of those things where it's kind of like usually on Friday and Saturday nights in like the club and bar districts, they do a sweep. It's not really a curfew, but they do a sweep because the bars are closing and they don't want people loitering. So they do a sweep. They're not stopping people, but they're going down the street, kind of like how they did in Bourbon Street last week in New Orleans, where they go down the street with the blue lights and say, hey, everybody go home. You see what I'm saying? They're not technically stopping people then.
Well, see here, this is saying that, the police chief, Columbia Police Chief Skip Holbrook said that he would prefer officers not to make arrests, but to to issue warnings or citations. So that doesn't discourage stopping. That just
that's what I'm saying. Like,
arrest.
I think like The citation thing is more like a deterrent. So the first word he used before citation is what? What was the first word? What was that word?
Warnings or
warning.
citations.
So it's most likely just when you say warning, it's going to be the same thing they do when they.
Yeah, but that
like
still
about
is
2
given,
or 3 o'clock. That's still like now. It's probably going to become a citation if you don't listen. So I think the citation is the second step. You probably won't get a citation just for being out, but if you were out, they'll probably just be like, "Hey, y'all need to go home." And if you don't, then that'll be like a disorderly conduct citation afterward. I
he ain't saying nothing about cars though. That's why I mean. Even if cars are out, I think that still gives officers the ability to stop these cars and be like, "Yo, you ain't supposed to be out here."
I wish niggas would. I wish.
It might get to that point, man.
I wish. Because
I don't know.
There's
There's
also exemptions. There's exemptions for people who have to go to work. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. So you can't be just like there's places that are open for business. There are actually factories and plants and places that are open. People who do work. So
But people are gonna react to these situations differently. So I don't know. I mean, people have been locking themselves up already.